You make me feel, you make me feel like a natural woman. A natural woman. What is up, beautiful people? Oh my god. Back again in the lab. You guys like worms, don't you? God. We talked about the Tubifex worms, and immediately people wanted to talk about the black worms, but it was like one worm at a time. So here we go. Today we will be talking about black worms. I've got a bunch of stuff I was looking at ahead of time. I didn't do a slideshow. People are like, we like discovering it with you. So I was like, okay, I did a little less reading ahead. But we'll still start off kind of looking at what the black worms are, where they're from, what genus they're in, look up a few words. Then we'll get into it. There's some interesting things with the black worms. One of the reasons is apparently they're a model species, so there's something that people use to test drugs on quite a lot. So there's some interesting stuff with that. But how's everyone doing? It's been a minute. What is up, Cinnamon Girl? How's it going? Cheryl, Jody in the chat, Jesse in the chat. You were first. William, Chris. Oh my gosh, KG talking about wanting to eat the black worms off a fork. Wild. You guys got started in the chat early. Appreciate you. Nick turned me on to them in salads. Oh my gosh, black worms in a salad. One of my favorite dishes. Can't be beaten. Well, my goodness, I don't even know where to start because there's just so much to get into with the black worms. But before I dive into it, let me just make a few quick updates in general. I owe you guys some breeding update stuff. I owe you guys just some general fish room update stuff. I got some live culture progress going on. There's fairy shrimp in here that are just about reaching adulthood that I hatched out. Daphnia tray 3.0 has been extremely successful. High density in a tray floating in this green tank here. Okay. And that Galaris pair on Aquabid that I was lusting over on the looking up fish, was it that stream? Well, stream recently. Big Steve actually bid on them, won them, got 2 pairs, and gave me a pair at the ACSM meeting over the weekend, which, I guess, quick overview of the weekend. I did the Guapa Greater Washington Aquatic Plants Association nanoscaping thing. It was great. I have my scape. It's not in this room. I'm going to let it grow in a little bit before I totally dive into the scape. Whoa, $5 from Johnny Best Bro. We don't even know if it's going to be a good stream yet. We're 4 minutes in. Appreciate you, Johnny. You're extremely generous. Thank you so much. Well, I made my $5. Time to close out the stream. No, just kidding. Appreciate you, Johnny. We'll try and make it a good one. Make it worth the 5. But yeah, the aquascaping thing, it was fantastic. Custom 2-gallon water box, all in one, light pump, substrate plants. They had boxes of hardscape. It was great. I'll do a full club events overview probably on the next stream. But all just to say, it was a pretty good weekend of club events, and shout out to everyone that came out to the Guapa meeting and also the ACSM meeting. We had a Halloween costume contest. Had a very cool costume win. Someone went as a shrimp tank. It was quite impressive. So just a few updates there, but I'll do a full breakdown of the events. Some people from the chat were at ACSM. SVC, what's up, SVC? SVC was there. Big Steve showed up. Black Planet was there. Of course, Corey was at Guapa. And a few other people came to the ACSM one. Some newer people, some people from TikTok came, some fish talk people. So that was interesting. I was like, oh man, I gotta tap in with the TikTok fish live streamers, the Thompson Aquatics and all of them. They apparently they got their own thing. So I met some of those guys, which was pretty fun. But okay, what's up? Let me get into the worms here. Okay. Now I gotta tell you, Eventually, we're gonna have to decide which one's better, blackworms or Tubifex worms. And I'm conflicted. I'm conflicted because I think it's possible that the I think it's possible it could come down to nutrition, because from what we read with the Tubifex, it just seems like they might be a lot easier to culture. But the blackworms, they get the most like hype about them being like, oh, so nutritional, it's the best thing ever. So I think that's gonna be where the separating lines are. We're gonna have to determine that at some point. Because I mean, reproduction, like I'm sure they're both relatively quick, right? I mean, what are the odds that they're? I mean, the Tubifex probably is a little bit faster, but I don't know. So here we go. Here we go. Pulling it up. We got to start at stage 1, which is what is the worms in question that we're talking about. It's going to be one of those situations where, in order to find relevant papers about these worms, I had to not just search blackworms, not just search the Latin name for them. I had to search like aquatic worms. I mean, they just call everything. They just can't make up their minds what they want to call stuff sometimes, honestly. So, yo, what's up, Captain Armada-in-Chief? Popped in the chat. Cheers, everyone. Shirley Dinosaur, Resident Dinosaur, is in the chat, working and lurking. Okay, so let's just start off on Wikipedia. Now, when we went over the Tubifex, we kind of got we got familiar with the phylum level, the Annelida. You know, we kind of went through what this is, the segmented worms. You know, but everything else is looking relatively different. I mean, these also are in the class, this Cletoletta, that has the collar. Apparently, they're in this class too. When we go to the genus, is Lumbriculus. Okay, so Lumbriculus variegatus. Nick, switch your chat from top chat to live chat. Done. Thank you, Captain, for reminding me to do that. Let's make sure I see all the chats. Okay, so Latin name for these guys, the California blackworms, or apparently the Australian blackworms, is Lumbriculus variegatus. Now, if you didn't think about the fact that these worms live somewhere besides the fridge of your local fish store, yes, they have a place in the wild. It tends to be shallow water, marshes, ponds, swamps. And one thing that was interesting is I saw a few places describe them as primarily carnivorous. And I always think it's weird when they say that about worms, because I don't like to think about them like really eating things too much. It's a little bit disturbing. So apparently they eat a lot of organic material and microorganisms. So the maximum length of the specimen, 3.9 inches. They say worms raised in a laboratory are shorter, apparently. Hey, with the Tubifex, we saw a lot of things could affect the, peak growth, peak length, or something like that. Supreme length, whatever the term they used. Well, I guess that's a thing here as well. But there's 3 species that are given the name as blackworm, and they're identical in appearance and were once considered a single species, but apparently are now 3 different species. They have the ability to regenerate into a new individual when separated. So that's where you get people talking about cutting them up and things like that when breeding them. And this is one of their primary modes of reproduction. So mature individuals are apparently rare in large areas. They say in Asia, North America, and the greater part of Europe, mature individuals have almost never been found. So let's what makes these worms stand out, the characteristics. Okay, the pigmentation of the anterior end, it's got a green pigmentation apparently, and it's 2-pointed setae. And we'll go down the thing and see what this is. Wow, this is setae on the foreleg of a mayfly. And this is apparently what they say is any number of different bristle or hair-like structures on a living organism. This is a pretty broad term. But two-pointed setae at the interior end. And its curious reflex escape mechanisms. I was looking up research on them. A lot of it revolved around their escaping ability and also their ability to tangle and untangle themselves from each other. So we'll get into some of that. Yo, what's up, Sedantis, man? Featherfin Films in the chat. Make sure you subscribe to Featherfin Films. Came on the stream. He was on the 9-hour record-setting stream, and before that, he was on the call where we did the previous record-setting stream. So shout out to Sedantis, man, a legend. Okay, so yeah, a lot of research around these guys. A lot about how different drugs affect them because they're a model species. A lot about the mechanics of how they like float, how they keep their ends up in the air, and how they escape and things like that. So we'll look at some of that stuff. But I think we're all probably most interested in like reproduction and applications relevant to the aquariums. But just one more fish. 12-hour stream coming up next. Bro, I gotta build back up to it, man. I don't know why I feel like rusty streaming. Like our streams they've been so short. They've been short but sweet. Short but sweet. But 12-hour stream next, and then 24-hour stream after that. Right? I feel like if you go past 12 hours, you may as well just go 24. Well, if I ever hit 10,000 subscribers, if we haven't done 24 hours, we'll do it then, but I'm sure we'll probably do it. What's the nutritional value? We're going to go over that. Critter said I'm more interested in nutritional content. Well, I thought it was implied if we're going to culture them and their reproduction. I think that's what's going to help us determine if they're better than Tubifex in any way. I know that I think part of the stuff that they eat helps with their nutrition, but we'll get there. We'll definitely get there. But they have quick reflexes, which is important because if you ever tried to catch them and you don't have them set up in a right, they are pretty fast. They are actually pretty fast. Okay, so the posterior end lifts out of the water, forms a right angle. It's exposed to air. Has photoreceptors to detect shadows and movement. The escape pattern depends on where the worm is touched. If it's touched on the interior, it elicits a body reversal where the posterior touch triggers helical swimming. I gotta look that word up. Okay, so that's having the shape. Okay, so swimming in like a helix, a spiral. Cool, got it. If you turn off your air pump, they'll all go to the surface in a horrifying ball. Captain says, yeah, that does actually sound quite horrifying. I'm not gonna lie. Leave it to Captain to terrify us all. Okay. In the best way possible. So, reproduction, okay? And we're starting on the Wikipedia just for the baseline. Then we'll get into the stuff where it's a little bit more to chew through. But regeneration, okay, that's the primary way, them breaking apart and then a new individual being created from that separated segment. If the regenerating segment originated less than 8 segments from the anterior tips, this number of segments were regenerated. If, however, the segment was originally from a more posterior position, only 8 segments were regenerated. Okay, let me read that again to make sure I understand. Okay. So, if the part that broke off originated less than 8 segments from the anterior tip, this number of segments are regenerated. If, however, the segment was originally from a more posterior position, only 8 segments were regenerated. That's kind of interesting that it could have a hard cap on how many segments are regenerated based on where it could be from. What's up, Jody? Okay, posterior to a segment, a variable number of segments are regenerated, and the original segment undergoes transformation to become suited to the new, often more anterior position. I'm just going to look up the word interior just to make sure I remember. So interior is near the front. especially situated in the front of the body or nearer to the head, or in a formal setting, coming before in time, earlier. Okay, nearer to the front. Boo, blackworms suck, Tubifex rule. I posted some of the photos in the live stream discussion of them being horrifying. Okay, I'll pull some of those up in a bit. Okay. I mean, I do think that Tubifex are a little bit more intriguing to me at this time. Now, there's a couple of things. When talking about the production of the worms, there's a couple of weird things going on, and I figure we may as well start historically, and by that I mean it's only right if we go all the way back to 2002. Okay, 2002. Because I feel like just to get a more context for them in the hobby, it's fun to go back and just see what people were talking about 2 decades ago. So this is simplydiscus.com, July 26, 2002. Okay, and this guy's posting, this is Blackworms Part 1. Okay, and he mentions that in the past I've received literature from a scientist that specializes in vertebrates and has written extensively on blackworm biology. His name is Dr. Charles Dwoos. If you recall my writings on blackworm culture, I referenced him there. I recently sent him an email to ask his opinion on diseases and aspects we discussed. Okay? And he's emailing this guy asking if Lumbriculus variegatus, the California blackworm, can act as an intermediate host for tapeworms to then be passed on to our fish. And the professor of zoology and genetics responds that there's no evidence that they're immediate hosts for tapeworms, which I thought was kind of an interesting thing, just seeing what people were worried about them in 2002. Okay. Then they also asked about hexamida infection, and the professor responded, I consulted with a professor colleague here who's an expert in fish parasitologist, and he tells me parasites, several species of which do infect fish, do not use any intermediate hosts such as Ologia worms or any species to harbor and transmit the parasite. Instead, one fish can directly affect another, blah, 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 releasing feces into the water. So it's not even about like the typical things that I thought of, the nutrition stuff. They're worrying about different diseases and things like that, which I feel like is how people kind of feel about Tubifex worms. When you bring up Tubifex worms, what people go to is, oh, sludge worms, they're dirty, they're disgusting, they have diseases. Oh, recenter your screen. OBS is oh, there we go. My bad, I didn't hit transition. Thank you. Okay. Also, what's interesting is the hexamida infection. This guy says the concerns about the infection coming from the worms themselves is not warranted. Of course, the water that the worms were in might be a potential concern if it was water that came from infected water. You could rinse and drain the worms several times in distilled water to help flush away any fish feces. I might add that if fish feces were consumed by the worms, I suspect any of the hexamida would get fully digested in the worm gut. As I mentioned, there's no evidence of invertebrates being an intermediate host for hexamida. I verified this information through a search of research publications using the Biological Abstracts database. Now, this is 2002, so this information could be outdated, but I do think it's nice to go back in time and just see what people on these old forums were talking about and related to them. I have heard people say that before about certain things when it comes to intermediate host or stuff like that, that actually, if it's getting eaten, then it could be getting digested and not be a problem. But you never know. Or I guess you could know. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. Old emails on the forum. Now, if you've been buying blackworms, you may be familiar with Eastern Aquatics. So this is one of the places you can order a bunch of blackworms from. They also, I always think it's funny when someone that you kind of know for one thing also has like one or two other things. Like they also apparently have discus and live brine shrimp Black brine shrimp, I guess, makes sense. But what I know them for is mostly blackworms. So you can order a pound of live blackworms for $139 from them, or $116 a pound for $20. What's up, Luis? How's it going? Blackworms are okay. You gotta beat Jody's first unboxing today. Tough shoes to fill, boss. Just kidding. Yeah, if you did see a Tropical Fish Co. did their first live unboxing, it was pretty cool. They got some nice stuff in. So just keep an eye on your wallets. Keep an eye on your wallets, man. Eastern Aquatics, they also have macroalgae, apparently. So, but why I come to them is, as we're building this kind of basis of blackworms, what they are and all that, looking at where they're being mass produced. So you see they've got giant ponds, like outdoor ponds, and we're reading a bit, but these are actually covered, I believe. The ponds are covered, and they got the worms in there, and they rake them out into buckets and then clean them and all sorts of stuff like that. So again, going back to an old, let me see if I can find it. I found another old post where they talk about the farming process of the blackworms a bit more in detail. Can you imagine raking worms out of a pond? Like, I don't know, just something about it. Something about it doesn't sound as fun as I want it to sound. Like, raking worms should be a fun activity, I feel like. I feel like it should be something we all look forward to. You know, oh, let's all go get a rake and go rake some worms. But, like, then when I really think about it, I don't know. It just doesn't feel quite right. What's up, Jeff? Empire Dirt popping in. Uncle Smiley, how's it going? The smell. Fish to Keeping said biggest concern with Tubifex is them being an intermediate host for myozoans, which mostly affects cold water species, but slowly spreading to tropical species. Oh man, that sucks. Yeah, that's the thing that is kind of concerning, is all these things. It's like, yeah, it only affected these temperatures, but now they're adjusting to warmer temperatures. It's fantastic. So Ada, I was like, what is that noise? Ada is sitting in the chair here. I have to put the chair here or she'll keep jumping on me all stream. She needs somewhere to sit near me. There's some airline extenders here and she's just like knocking them off one by one. So I was like, what is that noise? It's Ada. Okay. So the first paper we're going to get into is a good one. All right. Behavior, growth, and reproduction of Lumbriculus variegatus in different sediment types. Well, let me see if this is one that I actually already got the freaking PDF for, because otherwise I'm gonna have to pivot. But there's a few on how the substrate they grow in affects them. Let me pull up my billionth tab. There we go. There we go. This is the one I was looking for. Okay. Environmental conditions and husbandry approach affect the survival and physiology of the California blackworm. Perfect. Okay. So, getting into things, as we know, the California blackworm is a freshwater segmented worm species used by biology instructors as a model system for inquiry-based student investigations. Oh my god, Ada, do you have to... Okay, I'm going to see if we can get it on camera knocking this over as I read the paper, because this is ridiculous. Featherfin's film said they're called variegatus, but they're all uniformly reddish-brown. Jeff said, Nick, do you fall in love with my blackworm scape? Absolutely not. Ada, do you have to knock down every single one? Bro, this is actually crazy. I got her in 4K doing this. Okay. So, Here we say they tend to feed on decaying vegetation organisms found at the shallow edges of... Are you for... Ada? There's like 7 more left. I can't... Is she really going to knock over every single one? Okay. In the past decade and a half, there's been increasing interest in the species of the model organism and to aid in the understanding of biological systems, such as the circulatory system. L. variegatus worms are suited to this task as the body wall is transparent, which allows for macroscopic inspection of the dorsal blood vessel, the larger of the 2 major blood vessels, which runs along the posterior side of the worm. As L. variegatus lacks true cardiac tissue, they utilize rhythmic contractions of smooth tissue surrounding the dorsal blood vessel to facilitate the flow of blood throughout the body within a closed circulatory system. This is kind of crazy. They use contractions of smooth tissue to move blood throughout their bodies. Okay. Therefore, inspecting the dorsal blood vessel can be a convenient and informative approach to examine the worm's circulatory system. Okay, so they're like, look, we want to do all this research. Gaining a clear understanding about the physiology of these worms would help the researchers, actually to do good husbandry of the worms for the purpose of reproducing them to then study them and put them in ethanol and all sorts of chemicals and such. Okay. They're sensitive to a variety of environmental conditions such as light and slight pressure that elicit discrete behavioral phenomena such as segmental shortening. Ooh. Featherfin Film says, what's the point of having a true heart when you're that small and thin? I don't know. Like, why would you want to be so heartless? That's what I would ask. We've also observed in oxygen deficiency studies that L. variegatus movement... Dude, this is so distracting. She's knocking over everything. Okay. I'm confiscating. I'm done. You've knocked over like 20 of them. Yeah. They're going in there. Okay. Okay. In the oxygen deficiency study, their movement and dorsal blood vessel pulsation rates change when their environmental water is not frequently replenished. So this is going to be another one where you want to keep having that water, that fresh water coming in, man. These worms are so picky. They're so picky. Additionally, vascular performance is highly dependent on temperature. For example, Philafer and Schneider in 2013 showed that cardiac arrest could occur in the worms after heat shock treatment reaches a critical point of 37.2 degrees Celsius. Although educational settings may most easily use environmental conditions that are similar to room temperature for humans, they typically inhabit environments with temperatures that deviate from room temperatures. Therefore, it's important to establish optimal laboratory husbandry approaches that help maintain these organisms at maximal metabolic function to help the study of their systems, since the blood circulation is directly related to metabolic function. So that's kind of... I like keeping a lot of things at room temperature, but I guess it's a good reminder, room temperature, not a great broad stroke range to apply to every single thing. Okay.
We streaming, boys.
We streaming, boys. Yes, sir. To establish these optimal environmental conditions, we studied the dorsal vessel pulsation and segmental reflexes of L. variegatus, maintained at differing lighting, temperature, and water cleaning frequency conditions. Oh my gosh. This is recent enough they're mentioning COVID-19. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, the experiments detailed in this manuscript were conducted in the premises of a conventional dormitory room with a simple light microscope and disposable pipettes that were lent by UW-Madison Biocore Department. Most of the materials described in this manuscript are common household items. Furthermore, the methodology was designed to be easily executable in typical dormitory rooms with little required previous laboratory training. Perfect. We can all do this experiment. Fish to keep it. Get out of my room, Mom. Okay. Let's see. Let's skip ahead a little bit and see what's going on. So environmental conditions. So remember, This is testing environmental conditions and husbandry approaches that affect the survival and physiology of the California blackworm. What's up, Beto? Beto says, yo, peeps. What's up, peep? So for environmental temperature, worms in 3 increased temperature treatment containers were reared at a temperature of 22 degrees Celsius, okay? 22 degrees Celsius with 71.6 degrees Fahrenheit. This was maintained by regulating the room thermostat. For reduced cleaning frequency, 3 containers were maintained using a once-a-week water cleaning schedule. For the reduced lighting treatment, 3 containers were exposed to 24-hour dark treatment. Okay? And then here they talk about how they calculate the segmental reflex rate calculation, which I don't necessarily think we need to go into depth out of that. Okay, so we got some pulse rates based on temperature. I didn't realize worms were so complicated, KG said. I know, man. I know. Why can't everything just be simple? Okay, so a lighting condition. The mean dorsal vessel pulsation rate of the worms housed in a 24-hour light treatment was 21.7 plus 4.0 pulsations per minute. Okay. Discussion. Okay, so they found an increase in mean dorsal vessel pulsation of about 30% and segmental reflex rates of about 26% in groups reared at 22 degrees Celsius. And that's compared to groups reared at 10 degrees Celsius. Featherfin Film says worm barely means anything taxonomically. Yep, when we were looking at the Tubifex worms, that was one of the first things we realized is like, okay, worm is like not a real term. They call it anything with no legs worms. It was kind of disappointing, I'm not gonna lie. Okay. So temperature seems to really affect their circulatory performance, how much they're pulsating, moving that blood around. They found a significant decrease in mean dorsal vessel pulsation and segmental reflex rates in water containers cleaned once a week relative to those cleaned twice a week. So keeping those worms clean make a big difference. Jacob said, just got the isopods today. The Acellus aquaticus, spent the whole day playing with them. Blackworms are on the list. I'm starting to have more cultures than I do tanks. Hey, Jacob, welcome to the isopod agenda. Hope you have a good time with the pods. Blackworms, yes. A lot of people talk about getting the isopods, and then they're also usually interested in things like blackworms and stuff like that. So let us all know how that combination goes. That sounds like a lot of fun. Okay. So their oxygen availability pilot study showed that less frequent cleanings significantly reduced oxygen concentration inside water containers relative to the oxygen concentration inside more frequently cleaned water containers. This suggested that the decreased competition over resources where aerobic microorganisms, which are more likely to be removed with frequent cleaning schedules, may have contributed to the increased vascular and neuromuscular function. In addition, we note the greater effective cleaning frequency on a segmental reflex rate than on the dorsal vessel pulsation rate, which implies greater sensitivity of neuromuscular function to this factor than that of metabolic function. Therefore, we recommend that researchers consider prioritizing more frequent cleaning schedules regardless of the focus of a study or educational task, particularly if neuromuscular function is being inspected. A 57% increased in segmental reflex rate was observed due to the 24-hour dark treatment. Okay. So what I'm getting from this so far is basically what Steve and Jacob said we're a family indeed. Steve said, a clean worm is a happy worm, wash your worms. And Captain Curtis said, blackworms are dirty and consume a lot of O2. So yes, and also what KG said, who knew worms were so complicated? Not something I think you just throw into a dirty container and then hope for the best. It does sound like if you want to have success with them, you're going to have to treat them like everything else and actually try and keep their parameters nice and healthy. Jacob said, I've heard people keeping them in the fridge with low water level and change it every day. Yeah, from my understanding, the fridge stuff is like, it helps keep their metabolism slower so they produce less waste and stuff, so you can like keep them longer. But if I was going to culture them, probably would want to take them out of the fridge at some point. Yo, Black Planet, what up, what up? Toggling back between work and the stream. It's like 9 p.m., man. Come on. You're working at 9 p.m., bro. Tell them you need a nap. Tell them it's time to take a nap. Now, when looking at different things to check out on stream, there was one paper that stood out as having the best title. Okay? The best title by far. This is 2015 in the Journal of Insects as Food and Feed, March 2015. And it's called Worm It. Sorry, I'm moving it so you can actually see the title. Have you talked about the new blackworm culture method inventor yet? No, I have not. I've not gotten to that chapter. I have not. But we did go over some emails from 2002. Does that count for anything? I feel like that could count for something. Okay. Worm It, converting organic waste into sustainable fish feed by using aquatic worms. So we got a few authors on here. Okay. And this is another one of those. Due to overfishing and the use of 1/3 of wild fish catches for feeding farm fish and livestock, there's a strong need for alternative sources of suitable proteins and lipids in fish feed. So everyone that was more interested in the nutrition of the blackworms, I think this probably is going to contain some justification for why they should be considered. So let's pay attention here. Oh, leeches. Beto said, I noticed a difference in blackworms and LFS. Some look wild and tank raised. Wild ones look really dark and come with leeches. So there's a paper on the list about the leeches, and the thing is that the reason the leeches are with the blackworms is because the leeches are eating the blackworms. Okay, so we're gonna get into that, but that's why they come with the leech. The leeches are they prey upon the worms. So we're ordering the worms to use for food for fish, but the leeches they're trying to use the worms for themselves. Okay. So, California blackworms can be a source based on their high protein content, variable lipid content, and amino acid pattern. Amino acids definitely come up a lot when looking at the fish foods. We need to mean that they're eating the leeches. In addition, their production can be combined with waste reduction. This is one of the main things I've been interested in and talking to Corey about, is like using the worms as part of the filtration system. Like if you could feed them the mulm and the sludge and they could like break it down. But can be combined with waste reduction as they can be grown on safe organic wastes. In this article, it was investigated whether the fatty acid profile of the worms changed with feed source. Profile of the worms grown on different feeds were similar, but also reflected profile of the feeds. Data suggests that the worms are capable of polyunsaturated fatty acid bioaccumulation. The worms converted different organic wastes, and look at this. Everyone's talking about, oh, I want something that eats the fish poop, parentheses here, and the organic waste, fish feces, and food industry sludges. Isn't that delicious? Food industry sludges. Let's go. With an efficient feed conversion rate of squiggly line 1.8 dry to wet weight, resulting in a theoretical production of 0.1 to 0.14 kg of fish per kg of waste. Worm composition resembles that of other wild feeds. The biomass contains important fatty acids. All right, let's get into this. Captain says, blackworms love to hang out in running sponge filters. I can see them living in a sump successfully. I agree. And then you'd get the isopods in there to break up the cellulose further down so the worms can digest it. Now you're seeing the pieces are all coming together. Let's go. All right. So, introduction. We'll skim through this. But this is them just basically talking about why they're doing this study. Excuse me. More than 75% of investigated wild fish stock are fully exploited or overexploited. This is in 2015. This paper is written. Just reminder. A major point of concern is production of fish oil/meal from wild fish. Of all catches at sea, around 30% is used as feed for farmed fish and livestock, such as pigs. Okay, price is growing. They need an additional feed. Hi Jeff, I'm traumatized with the leech issue. We'll do the leech one after this but I don't think you need to be too scared of the leeches. Featherfin says put hornwort in the sump as well to suck up more nutrients. And Mick said, and that's why people in the 70s got allergic reactions when feeding Tubifex collected in ditches to their fish. Hi Nick plus all, what's up Mick? Good to see you. Captain says, blackworms do co-culture well with isopods from personal experience, but you need to give them spaces that they each prefer. Lava rock, wood, sponge, moss, macroalgae. Yeah, I would not just throw them together in like a box with just like a plain box. You got isopods like trying to like run through a clump of worms and stuff. Yeah, I could see that, them needing their own spaces. All right. Study in 2006 analyzed the fatty acid and amino acid composition of L. variegatus, the California blackworm grown on fish feed. They concluded that the fatty acid and amino acid composition rendered the worm species an excellent fish feed that is equivalent to or better for fish health than regular fish feeds such as Artemia, brine shrimps, or dry feeds. They reproduce by asexual division, which is easy to control. They've been investigated for their capacity for waste sludge reduction and compaction in municipal wastewater. And I'm just going to look up the word compaction just because, I mean, I know what it means, but I just want to see the definition. So compaction, the exertion of force on something so that it becomes more dense. I feel like there's a joke in there about me becoming stupider and stupider by the day, but it'll come to me. All right. So they're looking at it for municipal wastewater treatment processes, which is definitely interesting. They can digest a broad range of sludges with an average sludge reduction percentage of 25% on dry matter. On a dry matter basis. The worms could cause a sludge volume decrease of 60%, which can result in a considerable reduction of sludge processing costs. Black Planet said an old-time killie keeper theorized breeders did better with fish in the past with less information and technology because of blackworms. Honestly, from what I've been reading so far, this far into the stream, and just based on the other live food stuff, I kind of could see that being true because, so baby brine shrimp is not actually that incredible nutritionally. Not to say that's bad nutritionally, but like it's not complete. So I could see how if you have a live food like blackworms, which seems like it could be comparable or better than the brine shrimp, that could have a big impact on fertility and all that good stuff. So I think that old time killie keeper might have something. Watch your mouth talking shit on BBS. Hey man, facts don't care about your feelings. What can I say? What can I say? The dry matter based growth yield of worms was on average 5% based on the sludge ingested. Can you imagine having this as a stat about you, your sludge reduction rate? Like yeah, Big Steve, he has a 60% sludge reduction rate per day. Like, okay. So the analysis of the worms biomass grown on municipal waste sludges and on commercial fish feeds has shown the dry matter content of the worms is 13 to 16%. The dry matter contains 62 to 66% protein, 11 to 25% lipid, and 7 to 12% fatty acids. I increased sludge production, as Steve said. Team BBS is coming for you. Hey man, look, from what we've read so far, they're really looking at like copepods and stuff to get in the, like I think baby brine shrimp is on its way out. It's on its way out not because of its nutrition, because it's not news that its nutrition isn't complete, but because of, like we talked about with Corey and stuff, the availability, the environmental stuff, it's just starting to make sense oh, like maybe we should look at these other things, these Daphnias, these Moinas, these Cyclops, you know. Municipal waste sledges is crazy. Yeah, apparently they're raising these worms on municipal waste sledges, and it's beating brine shrimp. BBS is a boomer scam, Fish to Keeping says. It does honestly feel that way, and if you think about it, the whole sea monkeys thing, like brine shrimp, their whole history revolves around scamming people. Let's be honest. I think sea monkeys have to be one of the most disappointing childhood purchases of all time. Featherfin Film said brine shrimp just had insane marketing. I think it's like a combination of insane marketing and then just like, I don't know. It is legitimately useful. It does have legitimate benefits, but like, I do think people have been held back. And also, they're not in some of these other countries. They have access. They're using Tubifex worms and other things like that. So, hey, maybe part of the reason why we don't have mass production of certain fish here is because we're still trying to use brine shrimp for everything. People eat shrimp, so it's easier to sell little shrimp over worms. Oh, interesting. We got people that are just they don't like worms, so they don't want to feed them. I mean, worms are kind of gross. Brine shrimp is a little bit more appealing on the ick factor level. I mean, they're kind of cute too when they hatch out and right before you feed them to all the fish, you know? Okay, the amino acid profile was stable on different feeds as expected. So this is something that is interesting to me because when you're reading about these live feed stuff, a lot of the time what they're eating affects if they're nutritionally useful. And so it's interesting already, like the amino acid profile is like stable on different feeds, including the municipal waste sludge. Like, so you don't have to come up with some special concoction to make them actually useful. Jacob said Moina and Scuds have increased in numbers and the tanks are cleaner with them, and the baby fishes thrive when I can't feed them 5 times a day. A food web is key. Featherfin Film says there's also the San Francisco Bay brand, which is pretty prominent a few years ago. Yep, indeed. The cans do look cool. Black Planet said we're playing a municipal waste sludge drinking game. Yep, there we go. It's coming up again. Okay. So, worm biomass grown on waste sludges can, however, not be directly applied in the human food chain due to the low concentrations of heavy metals and possibly other pollutants, parentheses, organic micropollutant pathogens. Alternatively, L. variegatus may be produced on safe waste streams, which are produced in large amounts in the food industries, byproducts, but also in aquaculture, fish feces effluent, where no potentially dangerous substances such as antibiotics have been applied. So, at least they're considering us when thinking about, do we feed the worms that are eating the industrial sludge waste to the fish that eventually humans are going to eat? I appreciate that consideration. As a kid, San Francisco Bay brand was the only one you could find. Yep. Lake Missoula AP. Hello, everyone. What is up? What is up? KJ said, when I was a kid, my sea monkeys never hatched. Like, my sea monkeys hatched, but then it was just like, they don't look like monkeys. Like, the little container would have like little bars like a monkey would climb on and all the stuff in the little container, and it's just like, this is, they honestly should have been sued for every single penny they're worth, because it's some of the most deceptive marketing ever. I just remember when I was a kid just being like, what the hell is this sea monkeys? Like, oh, Chris also said the sea monkeys did a hatch. Wow, this is crazy. Hatch rate 1%. Garbage. Okay, so can't feed the worms to that have been eating the industrial sludge to things that humans will eat. All right. In addition, food industries produce large amounts of so-called industrial sludges, which result from the treatment of processed water. These sludges are not considered safe, but in general do not contain pollutants that are associated with municipal sludges. Oh, different. It's polluted differently. How come this topic isn't the perfect one when having a late slice of pizza, Mick said? LOL. Apparently the guy advertising has some really controversial political views too. I'm shocked. for this research, 2 industrial sludges, one from a sugar processing industry and one from a starch processing industry, and feces from farm tilapia were tested in short batch experiments for conversion into L. variegatus biomass. So we're going to try and grow the worms on starch processing byproduct, feces from tilapia, and byproduct from sugar processing industry. Fantastic. Also, worm PUFA composition in relation to that of the 3 food sources was investigated, since it's known to vary with feed for aquatic worms in general and can be used as a trophic marker. I'm going to look up the word trophic just to remind myself. Trophic, relating to feeding and nutrition. Okay, of a hormone or its effects stimulating the activity of another endocrine gland. Okay. It is unknown whether they're capable of PUFA biosynthesis, as was suggested by research on enzymes in freshwater crustaceans, Daphnia, and other lower organisms. Featherfin said, I would have tried a more proteinous sludge too, since sugar and starch are a bit redundant. I see what you're saying. I'm looking up the word proteinous. Containing or consisting of protein. I didn't even know that was a word. Proteinous. Okay. There we go. New words from the chat. Featherfin. Alright. Materials and methods. Fatty acids in worms and their feeds. So 2 populations of worms were grown for more than 6 months in the laboratory on 2 different feeds. So this is a nice, high quality. It's not the most poverty research study we've read on here. They put 6 months of growth into these worms. That's a lot of dedication there. I mean, how many of us have crashed a under worm culture after 2 weeks? Raise my hand. All right. So they were grown for 6 months in the laboratory on 2 different feeds. Municipal secondary waste sludge from wastewater treatment plants in Leeuwarden in the Netherlands, and Tetra Min aquarium fish feed, plus shredded paper towels as a reference feed. Yeah, apparently there's a shredded paper towel culture method thing with blackworms. Sounds terrible, but it is a thing. Beto said, I crashed many blackworm cultures too. Well, see, we're all admitting to our failures here. I appreciate that. Secondary sludge mainly consists of bacteria and organic materials and originates from the aeration tanks of wastewater treatment plants. Also, freeze-dried worms from a blackworm farm in Australia and their feed, a modified fish feed, were obtained. The basic composition of the feed is shown in Table 1. Okay. All live worms were depurated. Okay, they're made free of impurities, depurated in tap water for at least 6 hours before analysis to remove their gut contents. The Australian worm composition was analyzed by Analytico, and the sludge worm composition was obtained from Elison et al. 2010. Chris said, I have a great source for black worms now. Still to be seen how many hitchhikers come along. Man, it's just extra food. Come on. Fish Capet said, hey now, our favorite savage dreamer. What? I'm a savage now? I am a very well mannered member of society. I'm not a savage. Come on. The lipid percentages of the sludge worms and worms grown on the Tetra fish feed were determined, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we got a fatty acid analysis that's going to go down here. So, for the worms grown on the sludge, we have protein 34 to 43%, lipid Na with a little b, not analyzed. Okay, they didn't analyze the lipids on those. Carbohydrate 23 to 26, ash 14 to 22, and they didn't analyze the fiber. On the Tetramin food, the protein was 50, lipid 11, the carbs were 24, ash 12, fiber 3. On the modified fish feed, I think that included the blackworm stuff, protein 38, lipid 7, carbohydrate 45, ash 8, and fiber 2, and this is the total dry matter percentage. Honestly, the protein is a little bit more balanced than I expected. It's not like 1,000,000,000% protein like I don't know what white worms are, but they just look like all just fat and protein. Chris said every time I order from Eastern Aquatics, the amount of leeches have been crazy. I wonder if it's just a difference of where they're farming them and what is outside. Okay. So, in the 7-day experiments, they fed them with the 3 different waste streams, the tilapia, and the starch, etc. Initially, worms were incubated with untreated samples of each waste stream. However, in these batches, worms died, leading to decreased numbers and thus total biomass. A major cause of worm death when fed with tilapia feces and sugar sludge was most likely high ammonia concentration. So they dumped a bunch of shit in with the worms to feed the worms and instead fucking slaughtered them. Wow. Brutal way to go out. Can you imagine? You're just chilling and someone just dumps 3 billion gallons of tilapia shit right in your mouth and you breathe through your body. Holy. Okay, toxic effects at concentrations higher than a 0.1 mg unionized ammonia were previously found with municipal waste sludge. Therefore, the waste streams were washed 3 times with demineralized water prior to the second series of experiments. Okay, and the batches, total suspended solids and volatile suspended solid breakdown and changes in worm number and biomass were determined by counting and weighing respectively. Okay, we got control batches that were run parallel to determine the natural breakdown of waste streams. Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, Steve, if you saw Skipper's auction the other night, Steve was going crazy. Big Steve, big money Steve. Okay. Worms grown on the modified fish feed sludge and Tetramin fish feed contains 64, 63, and 68% protein, 6, and 5% ash, and 8, 7, 25, and 6 to 17% lipid, respectively. All DM based. Okay, so there we go. That makes more sense. I guess there's dry weight before. Most variation is in the lipid percentages, even though the lipid percentage of 25% seems very high and may be due to extraction of other components than lipids. It's quite clear the lipid percentages of the worm vary between food sources, as was found in a previous study. So it looks like the Tetra flakes, they had the high. No, wait, it was 16 to 70% on 17% on the Tetra fish feed. But on the just sludge, it was 7 to 25%. That's a pretty big range. Steve said, I lost a breeder box full of whiptail and orange Venezuelan Cory fry. Oh, god damn, man. I'm sorry. That's brutal. That is brutal. I lost a whole 10-gallon. I lost a 10-gallon of. I lost all my rainbow shiners the other day. So I feel your pain. It's rough. Okay, fatty acids in worms and their feeds. Okay. So here we got a little table of fatty acids. Now, this is where we're reaching a limit of my knowledge to read. Okay, but I'm gonna do my best here. So we got MUFA, we got PUFA, and we got HUFA. Okay, wait, I'm remembering. And also they have it down here. So monounsaturated fatty acids, we have this table here. Okay, and then we have the C11 to C22. So I think that's the saturated fatty acids. Okay. So the worm's modified fish feed, we have 20.92 on the monounsaturated fatty acids. On the worm's tetra min feed, we have 18.37 on the monounsaturated fatty acids. Looks like the highest number was the modified fish feed at 33 on the fatty acids. So from 12 to 33, pretty big range. On the polyunsaturated fatty acids, it ranges from 5 to 23, with the tetramin being the highest by far. So definitely the feed, they have some in all of them, but the feed definitely makes a pretty big difference here. The sludge, believe it or not, the sludge is not the most nutritious thing on the planet. That's what I'm getting out of this. All right, I want to get to the leeches, so let's just run to the conclusion here. So they said the California blackworms produced on safe organic waste streams can be an alternative to fish meal. Their composition resembles that of other aquatic live feeds and contains important fatty acids. Their fatty acid profiles on different feeds are similar, but the feed fatty acid profile are reflected in the worms to some extent. The worms have a higher percentage of polyunsaturated fatty acids in their fatty acid profile than their feeds, which indicates a bioaccumulation of polyunsaturated fatty acids. So that's kind of nice. When grown, I miss what this is, but when grown on the sludge, they contain elevated concentrations of OBCFA fatty acids. I'm going to think that's like organic bacteria, something fatty acids from bacterial origin, indicating bacterial feeding. They feed on several wastes with low ammonia concentrations and compact them. Okay. So the very interesting technology possibilities with that. And I guess the conclusion from this on the nutrition front is just that they have very stable fatty acid production. They accumulate it, which is kind of nice. So you keep feeding them something with a decent fatty acid profile, and they'll retain some of that and build up more. And they're comparable to other live feeds. Now, let's get to the leeches, man. Let's get to the leeches. Give me 1 second. How do you guys feel about the blackworms versus the Tubifex so far? I feel like the blackworms definitely seem a bit more complicated, a bit more temperamental maybe. I don't know. All this light sensitivity and I don't know. It's kind of freaking me out, man. This is kind of freaking me out. Now, KJ, if you're here, you should like this next one. Leeches predate on fast escaping and entangling blackworms by spiral entombment. Let me just read this again from Maximum Halloween Effect. Wait, I gotta watch the replay. Blackworms are light sensitive. Yes, they appear to be pretty light sensitive. They got photosensitive sensors. So, and they're very fast. That's one of the things they seem to look at with them a lot. They're very fast. And if the light comes, they run. They run quick. So, that is one of the reasons why they're trying to figure out how the leeches are eating them, because they're like, yo, these guys have this helix swimming escape reflex. Like, how are these slow ass leeches catching them? And that's why we get this. Leeches predate on fast escaping and entangling blackworms by spiral entombment. Spiral entombment, man. It's just crazy. All right. So, abstract. We investigate how the Helibdella sp freshwater leech capture and consume Lumbriculus variegatus, the blackworm, despite the blackworm's ultra-fast helical swimming escape reflex, an ability to form large tangled blobs. We describe our discovery of a unique spiral entombment strategy used by these leeches to overcome the blackworm's active and collective defenses. Unlike their approach to less reactive and solitary prey like mollusks, where leeches simply attach and suck, pause, Helibdella leeches employ the spiral entombment strategy specifically adapted for blackworms. Our findings highlight the complex interaction between predator and prey in freshwater ecosystems, providing insights into ecological adaptability and predator-prey dynamics. And Mick says Entombed, another Swedish rock band you need to check out. But are they Spirally entombed is the question. And we have some great keywords here: predator, prey, physically entangled, collective behavior, worm blobs, blackworms, Lumbriculus variegatus, Helibdella, leeches, and entombment. And this is the leech in question. I'm sure you all recognize them. I'm sure. Putu said, Nick, the leeches are most successful at hunting the blackworms in warmer water, 55 and below, and the leeches do not want to hunt. Putu, a resident leech breeder. Alright, predatory behavior. The leeches, particularly Helibdella sp, are known for their diverse dietary habits, consuming a variety of prey ranging from oligochaetes to mollusks and insect larvae. At least fish is not on this list, I believe. Fish aren't mollusks, right? Yeah. No fish on here. So far, so good. As apex predators in small ponds. What? The leech is an apex predator? Oh, hell no. Oh, no. This changes everything. This changes everything. Leeches are alpha. As apex predators in small ponds and lakes, they serve as models for exploring ecological and evolutionary themes, including interspecies competition and niche overlap. Helibdella leeches are characterized by a pale gray or yellow hue, a flattened head with twin ocular spots. Can we just say eyes? Ocular spots? Is that not eyes? Ocular spots. When you look it up, it's a Mayo Clinic eye floater symptoms and causes. Okay, we'll have to look into that. In a body length under 2 centimeters, they display a fascinating biological profile. Chris said, Nick, I got a species of freshwater stonefish for you. I think you could do a Coyote Peterson and do a pain test. Yeah, I'm not touching the venomous stonefish, man. I saw the unbagging, or the unboxing, that is, the bull rope, or whatever they're called. Yeah, nice try. Just trying to get me stung. Alright, unlike macrophagous leeches that ingest prey whole, that's terrifying, liquidosomatophagous leeches like Helibdella draw nutrients from bodily fluids of their prey using a specialized proboscis, showing a preference for oligochaetes as evidenced by oligochaete proteins in their digestive system. So these guys got a little straw for eating the worms, and worms are what they like to eat. Puja said, like I said, it's got to be warm for the leeches to go feral. What the? Blackworms can thrive in cooler temps and outpace leech predation. Bob said, I'm intrigued, Chris. Bob, I think Johnny posted in the Discord one of the stonefish names. If you're curious, I'll have to go back and find the Latin name, but yes. Tropical Fish Co. getting in some interesting stuff. Check out their Tropical Fish Co. the channel. They have their live VOD is on there if you want to see what they got in today. They made me want to quarantine plants for sure, or at least dip them. I found some of these white leeches after I got Anubias. Oh, they're harmless. They're just apex predators. What's the problem? What's up, JP Jeffries? How's it going? We're talking about the leeches that love eating the blackworms so much. Little brown frogs, more sludge worms. Yes, more sludge worms and the leeches that eat them. I still think this is a great title. Leeches predate on fast escaping and entangling blackworms by spiral entombment. Spiral entombment is just such a great term. Forwarded some leech diet information I accumulated in the live stream discussion. Gotcha. Just as a announcement, join our Discord. We have a live stream discussion channel in there, and generally I check out the stuff posted in there during the stream. So at some point I'll take a break and we'll go through everything anyone's posted in live stream discussion. Alright, the interaction between the Helibdella leeches and California blackworms exemplifies complex predatory-prey relationships in freshwater ecosystems. The leeches display advanced trapping and survival techniques beyond simple predation when targeting oligochaetes like the blackworm. They show a preference for blackworms or Tubifex worms. No! They eat both of they like both of the worms we've talked about so far. What the hell? I cared for some brackish fish for my LFS customers. Kept my fingers out of that tank. If you want to remove the leeches, dip them in soda water for 5+ minutes, Putu said. Ooh. Chris said, is that why you get more leeches in warm weather? I always noticed they're worse in the summer. Sounds like it. So blackworms, they have this rapid escape mechanism through a helical swimming gait. They're swimming in a spiral and also form protective entangled collectives or warm blobs comprising up to thousands of conspecifics. This collective behavior, much larger in size than the leeches themselves, provides a unique perspective on natural selection pressures and biomechanical influences on predatory behaviors. JP Jeffrey says, can I put this class on my resume? Only after you've taken the quizzes. I still need to make the quiz for Tubifex and for the blackworms. Maybe we'll do like an end of month test on like all the streams like this. I think we'll do that. That might be better. I'll put a guide, a syllabus. Just say like 40 hours of aquaculture online course or something vague. I think it totally should count, right? I'm accredited. Well, actually, I'm ordained. I'm actually an ordained minister. I can legally marry people. So if we can parlay that into some kind of teaching license, like I think this works somehow. Okay. In this study, we describe... So, right. So they're like, these worms are so fast. How are these leeches catching them, right? These robust escape reflexes give blackworms a survival advantage against predators like the Hilabella leeches. Given these defenses, we ask, how do the leeches capture and consume the blackworms despite the blackworms' ultra-fast helical swimming escape reflex and ability to form large entangled collectives? How? Little Brown Frog said, ordained to give us quizzes. Exactly. Padre Nick. Steve said, yep. Come on, man. I'm ordained, man. What is the strategy that leeches use to consume the blackworm? Lumbricularis variegatus. Spiral entombment would be the answer. So in this study, we describe our discovery of a unique spiral entombment strategy used by leeches to overcome the blackworm's active and collective defenses. Unlike their approach to less reactive and solitary prey like mollusks, where leeches simply attach and suck, Abdullah leeches employ this spiral entombment strategy specifically adapted for blackworms. Oh my god, they have brain cells. They can tell the difference between a mollusk and a worm. Okay, here we go. They sourced the California blackworms, Lumbricularis variegatus, from Word Science, where they often came with freshwater leeches. Oh my god. They just ordered it from a place that just always sends leeches. Let's look at this Word Science real quick. I recognize the name. Resources, okay. Biology resources, right? That's where it would be. Butterfly, preserved specimen, words preserved specimen, biology video, live materials, care guide. Oh my god. Products, biology. Okay, we're gonna find it. Living specimens, here we go. Organisms, invertebrates, vertebrate, protist, bacteria, fungi, plants. Okay, they got all the specimens. Reptiles, fish. They got plecos, red rosy minnows, brine shrimp eggs, guppies, goldfish. They got a branded goldfish and live guppy. Oh my god. Look at this fish, snail, and plant habitat setup. Set contains 1 male beta, 2 mystery snails, and a package of fucking Eladia densa. Oh my god, bro. You gotta post this on Reddit, man. They might burn the building down. You want to put a betta and 2 mystery snails in this garbage? Holy. Oh, we got a crayfish in here. Little Brown Frog says, "Wars like Carolina Bio, they will provide pond-bred blackworms, which come with pond-related freebies." Yeah, okay. So, they just ordered it from a pretty standard Carolina Bio type company that they just always come with leeches. So they didn't even have to order the leeches specifically. They know, like we all know, you order blackworms, the leeches are coming, because apparently the leeches love to eat blackworms. All right, so they came as unintended pests. Initially, we identified these leeches as Hebdella stagnalis based on general morphological features. Later, it suggested they more accurately could be Hebdella echoensis, particularly due to the distinct positioning and shape of the eyes. In the absence of comprehensive molecular analysis such as DNA or RNA sequencing, and this is the, I think the distinct shape they're pointing out here of the eyes. Looks like two little like watermelon seeds here. That are goofy as hell, man. Anyways. Okay, so they just referred to them as Hebdella sp because they couldn't necessarily be sure on what species they are. They recorded the predator-prey interactions using a Leica MZ-APO microscope. Let's look up this microscope. Mickam said looks like nostrils. Ooh, yeah, these look cheap. Sure. Equipped with an image source DFK 33UX264 camera. Oh man. Oh, that's actually not too expensive. It's under $1,000. It's not bad. All right. We randomly selected healthy worms. For the experiment, we chose freshwater leeches of similar size to the worms. Before introducing the prey, each leech spent 1 hour in the area in the arena. They call this the arena. This is sadistic. They're just putting the worm and the leech in there, filming it under the camera. I get it, it's an experiment, but they said the leech spent 1 hour in the arena. Like, this is a gladiator fight. Containing only water as a control period. We repeated each predation trial n equals 5 times. Predation trial. Wow. During predation of a single blackworm, the leech employs a unique hunting strategy using its anterior sucker to latch onto a worm and swiftly envelop it in a spiral cocoon. This entombment process often requires multiple attempts and involves meticulous coordination, finding an optimal area with the anterior sucker, extending through flexure, and executing coordinated ventral folding to form a cavity. In this cavity, the leech inserts its proboscis into the entombed worm to feed on its internal liquids and tissues through liquidosomatography. Sure. Why are we researching leeches again, Bob said? We're looking at the leeches that eat the we're trying to understand blackworms. Oh, this is their lives, okay? And you order the blackworms, the leeches come with the blackworms. So it just felt like related, Nick needs a Leica GoFundMe is only 100K, right? Give it to someone that knows how to read. Okay. And we actually get to see the entombment here. So you see the leech. It gets its sucker onto the worm, and the worm has its helix spiral escape strategy, but the worm spins itself. This is a failed attempt. But then here we see a successful attempt. It grabs the worm and then wraps itself around the worm. And then here's the proboscis sucking the life out of the worm. Oh my god. So there you go. There you go. And this is against a worm blob. So shifting the dynamic from a single leech and an individual blackworm. So the blob changed predation outcomes. When the leech places an anterior sucker on a worm within the blob, it encounters undulating movements as the worm, while remaining entwined with the other worms, vigorously resists The entire blob then draws towards the predator. Rather than isolating the prey, subsequent attempts by the leech to envelop the entire blob through its ventral fold are thwarted by the group's collective density, presenting an insurmountable barrier and leading to a series of failed predation attempts. Oh my god, bro. This is like Lord of the Rings. This is an epic battle right now. Teamwork to overcome the Balrog. Wow. Can I be a leech? I want a leech animal companion, a giant leech. Leech, use spiral entombment. Use spiral entombment. That would be an amazing attack, bro. Metal. You can often get older ones from school selling old equipment. Oh, okay. Leeches eating blackworms October is a small-scale horror story. I mean, so these are a time lapse of the leech's failed attempts to trap an individual worm. So it goes in for this individual worm, and then the blob attacks with their insurmountable mass, and the leech keeps failing. It looks like it did eventually get one. But okay, sounds like a wrestling move. Are we taking Pokemon or D&D with the giant leech reference? I was thinking more D&D, just because the animal companion lingo. You know, maybe this can be my new ranger build. You know, instead of a dire wolf, I get a dire Hubdella SP. Interesting in here, it refers to the Tubifex worm as being a less reactive prey. So blackworms do really stand out in their reflexes here. When you're feeling down and out, just think it'd always be worse. You could be a blackworm, or you could be a Tubifex worm. Unlike Tubifex worms in the Natidae family, which lack significant defensive reactions. So the Tubifex worms lack significant defensive reactions. The blackworms, however, exhibit robust escape behaviors, indicating their closer evolutionary proximity to leeches. So maybe another shout out to Tubifex as being a superior culture, because I don't really feel like catching worms. I don't know if I really want my worm to have a robust escape behavior. You know, I'm kind of cool with them just being dumb as hell. That works for me. It really does. Abiotic factors significantly impact these predator-prey dynamics. The dense aggregation of blackworms and blobs may influence local oxygen levels, potentially affecting the respiratory efficiency of leeches. Tubifex don't even have mouths; they just vibe and poop the water. I believe you're right. I believe that we were reading that they like absorb stuff through their skin or something, but I don't quite remember. They definitely don't eat stuff like blackworms. Actually munch on stuff, I believe. Okay, so the leeches respire through their skin and sometimes supplement their oxygen intake through undulating movements, a behavior also seen post-feeding or in their parental care practices. During these activities, the adult leeches actively ventilate their young, enhancing the oxygen content around them, which is crucial in low oxygen environments. We hypothesize that this adaptation could be disadvantaged when a leech attempts to feed within a worm blob, as the collective might reduce the available oxygen, potentially disrupting a feeding leech's ability to aerate. Wow. It's getting really in-depth here. See, it's about leeches, but we are learning a lot about the blackworms, I feel like. Okay, we are learning about the worms too. Do they secrete something to help break down their food? Which, the blackworms or the Tubifex? I don't think that these worms secrete stuff. Honestly, it seems like one reason like foods like the kefir and stuff work so well for the white worms. And if you remember the Tubifex worms, and Fish to Keeping pointed this out in the Discord, but a lot of the studies of things to feed them involved fermenting. So I think a lot of worms really rely on stuff breaking down a little bit first before it gets to them. So things like isopods and other things breaking down cellulose and other stuff, or just, you know, bacterias and things. That definitely has changed the way I think about what I'm feeding my worm cultures. Do they have mouths? Are you thinking the gas exchange to your skin? What's a better food source, blackworms or Tubifex? We're still trying to. We haven't fully gotten down to that. The blackworms do seem like they have a lot of hype nutritionally. They got a good amino acid profile. It looks like we've seen so far. Chris said, "No, don't leave us alone with Nick and the leeches." Temperate said, "Hype. What's up, Temperate? How's it going?" I haven't tried blackworms for my fish yet. After I had a beta get sick after eating possibly a bad one, I don't know. But all my fish love Tubifex. I fed the Tubifex from co-op. I believe they add vitamins. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely team Tubifex here so far. They seem easier to. They seem easier to grow. We haven't like looked though. This is the reproductive rate of the blackworms versus the Tubifex, but just from what we read, the Tubifex and my experience with blackworms, since the blackworms rely a lot on the breaking off and things like that, Tubifex seem to reproduce faster. Alright. So, that's the leeches, guys. That is the leeches. Spiral entombment. So, next time you get the worms in, you see the leeches, first of all. I know I just got here, but I remember the Tubifex were fatty. Yeah. Just remember, the worms are going through a lot more than you when it comes to the leeches, okay? The leeches are the apex predator, seeking out the destruction and the proboscis sucking of these worms. I'm just saying. Maybe we need to be a little bit less self-focused and think about what the worms went through traveling with their number one muncher chief. Okay. Let's see if we can get to some more nutritional stuff about these worms. Okay. And if I am doing my thing right, I got one coming up that should be exactly on that. Here we go. This is one of the ones that took me a second. Like, you would think that it would have been easier to stumble upon this, but it took me a second. I don't know why. But we have update on terrestrial and aquatic worms of the subclass Oligochaete in larviculture and aquaculture nutrition, biomass production, benefits, potential risks, and management strategies. So aquaculture nutrition, this is precisely what we were looking for. This is what everyone cares about these days. Everyone cares about the optimal nutrition. Now, the problem is, I just lost my freaking place. Give me a second. How did I even do that? Dun, 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 dun. Here we go. Thanks, Springer. Rumors says Nick quit keeping blackworms in his fish. Now he only keeps the bloody leeches. Oh my god. I did order leeches from Captain. I think they're probably still in there. I haven't seen them in a bit. Tubifex are hard to nail down nutritionally, as there have been several worms going around under that common name. Not all were the real Tubifex. That's true. The blackworms had the advantage of being very distinct. I think they said there were 3 species that all looked identical. They have a pretty distinct look. They got the 2 little hair things at the end, the green pigment they mentioned. He just says, just remember the worms are going through a lot more than you. I'm dying. Bro, it's true. It's true. They got challenges just like all of us. Okay. So, annelids of the subclass Oligochaeta are among the most cost-effective live feeds in larviculture and aquaculture nutrition due to their balanced nutrient profiles. So all you people complaining, oh, he's only talking about the leeches. We want to know about the nutrition. No, we don't even care about how they reproduce or how to culture them. We just want to know about the nutrition because we're never going to culture them. Fine. Okay, here we go. The inclusion of larviculture and aquaculture diets in different forms, such as live feed and frozen or processed forms, make them feasible feed supplements and sustainable aquaculture production. So we're going to look at their biomass production, benefits, potential risks, management challenges, and strategies. So we'll skip through the ones that aren't interested in us, but you will be happy to know this is the perfect paper for us, because right here they say what we know about the different culture substrates used in the mass production of commonly researched oligochaetes, Tubifex, earthworms, and white worms. And blackworm should be in here, but I'm not reading it right now. But hey, listen, we want to know about the Tubifex nutrition and the white worm nutrition anyway. It's relevant to the comparison, so we'll get down there. Okay. Introduction. So they're talking about how nutrition is important in larviculture, and all this kind of stuff. Okay. Poor growth performance of several aquaculture species has been attributed to the replacement of fish meal with other feed ingredients of lower nutritional composition that do not meet the dietary requirements of the species. The introduction of formulated dry feeds in the diet of different species of fish and shellfish has previously reported to hinder critical stages of larval development, leading to increased mortality. So kind of like Aaron said earlier, how the old Killy guy has kind of a theory that the reason people struggle more than in the old days, because in the old days they fed the fish tons of blackworms. Like, I think there might actually be something to that. Mick said, now I feel we need to start Save the Blackworm support group. T-shirts incoming. Honestly, Save the Black. I'll keep that in mind. That's not a bad shirt idea. Save the Blackworms. Okay, worms belonging to the subclass Oligochaeta show the great potential due to the rich nutrient composition in terms of crude protein, amino acids, vitamins, and minerals, and polyunsaturated fatty acid content that are essential for the proper growth and development of fish and shellfish. As such, they're competitive to others such as squid meal, krill meal, and mussel meal, which contain similar or even higher percentage of macronutrients that are within the dietary requirements of several aquaculture species. Okay? It's worth noting these worms are cosmopolitan and thrive well in the wild and or polluted environments, i.e. trenches, gutters, drains, ponds, rivers, agriculture soils, and our favorite, sludge. They have traditionally been collected from the wild to be used as bait, etc., etc., etc. Leeches on the sleeve. Let's go. Blackworms matter. Steve says too much. I mean, blackworms matter. I like that. Save the blackworms on the back for my fish. Front. Save the backwards back for my fish. I like that, Corey. I like that. Okay, so the most studied worms are Tubifex, the white worms, and the earthworms, because they're easy culture, organic substances, adaptability, and high protein content. Okay, let's scroll down. Let's see the amino acids of some of these things. Tubifex. Here we go. We talked about the blackworm nutrition. This stream is going to be primarily about blackworms, but let's be honest. Our streams always have a title, and we always go wherever we want to go. And I think we all care about Tubifex in here, so just excuse this slight delineation. Featherfin Worms said, now I want to make a fist out of worms. What the? A fist out of worms? Where'd that come from? What are you gonna do with the fist? Are you gonna rule with the worm fist? Having now since I pretend to be an early bird, I want to pester Nick about this paper in the Discord later. All right. Appreciate you stopping by. Always nice to have you in the chat. Get a good rest. Back to work. Blackworms matter. It's honestly slightly edgy, but not terrible idea. I mean, definitely an edgy concept. The hashtag Blackworms matter, but I kind of think it's funny. I think it's funny. Okay. Yeah, we know worms are great. They make everything better. Come on, let's get to the nutrition here. Yeah, they're actually referencing a Tubifex study that we read, which is kind of interesting. White worms. Yep. Okay. Potential risks. Management strategies. All right, let me go back to reading. My bad. Okay, apart from being administered as live feeds, Tubifex can be administered in different forms, such as dried Tubifex, which I feel like we're pretty familiar with, chopped, minced, or mixed with other ingredients. A reduction in growth performance was reported in angelfish and Trigogaster fasciata. Is that gourami? Yep, dwarf gourami. Fed on dry Tubifex worms. Okay, reduction in growth when they're fed on dry Tubifex worms. This could be attributed to the reduction in food quality under the drying process, and this could explain why live feeds are preferred to dry Tubifex feeds. However, mixtures of dry Tubifex worms and other commercial diets or feed additives can enhance the quality. For instance, this other paper in 2022 observed that the feeding post-larva of Chana striata on a mixture of dry Tubifex and commercial diet in a ratio of 50-50 improved the growth performance. Alright, so freeze-dried mixed with other stuff could be good, but nothing beats the good old live worms. Cool feather fins, just to show what side we're on here. You guys are on the Blackworms propaganda side, apparently. It's actually kind of crazy. Okay, we're gonna hop. There's something else I want to look at real quick. Back to the Blackworms. Yo, there's so many things that's like how a blackworm reacts to nicotine. I'm like, this is interesting, but I don't really know how useful this is to me. I wasn't planning on, chain smoking with my blackworms anytime soon. I mean, if I do another stream with Jorge, I'm gonna have to go outside and get a cigar or something, But I'm not passing it to my. Well, first of all, I'm not sharing a cigar at all. But I'm definitely not lighting one up for the blackworms. That's for sure. There's absolutely no way that would ever happen. Now, would I feed the blackworms a high quality fish pellet? That potentially I could do. But there's just some things where it's like we're close but not that close, How does a worm react to ecstasy? They probably split into 8 different segments all at once to just combust immediately. Okay. We need to get into the sludge. I'm just trying to figure out which blackworm route I want to go right now. It's a lot of sludge. You guys wanna hear about sludge? Because there's a lot of sludge. Like a lot of sludge. I'm actually a little bit concerned. I'm a little bit concerned how much, are we eating fish that are being fed sludge worms? Because now I'm kind of starting to wonder. Do we really know what's in our food chain? Industrial sludge? That's kind of what it's looking like. Oh! The behavioral, physiological, and biochemical responses of the worms exposed to cannabidiol and its metabolites. CBD. Okay, not quite ecstasy, but we're getting close. We're actually getting pretty close there. Give me a second. I'm looking for a good sludge one that I had saved here. Why are aquatic worms disappearing from Mumbai Bay in India? That's kind of sounds concerning. I'd be a little bit concerned too. Why are they disappearing? The Journal of Cleaner Production. That's kind of a nice name. That one might tempt me. Let's go for that. Going to Lurch unless I need to comment on something. Thanks for sharing. You made us all vegans now. Appreciate you, Mick. I was already non-pescatarian. Wait, non-pescatarian? I heard of that. And you don't eat the fish? Are fish supposed to be super healthy? Come on, man. Just give me a second. Ooh. Analysis of aquatic worms in flocculated digested sludge and extraction of extracellular polymeric substances in wastewater treatment plants. Oh my god. Aquatic worms facilitate productivity of macrophyte Azolla phyllocloides in a wastewater biocascade system. Bro, I just don't. I'm like overwhelmed with the choices right now. I saved too much stuff to this folder. Okay. I think I might have found the one. Hold up. Oil and plastics plus pesticide in coastal waters from polluting and rivers. Listen, man. You never know. Alright, I'm going here. Aquatic worms facilitate productivity of microphyte Azolla phyllocloides in a wastewater biocascade system. This will involve sludge. Okay. Due to high waste sludge disposal at wastewater treatment plants and increasing phosphorus scarcity, there's a need to combine waste removal and nutrient recovery. One way to achieve this is by incorporating ecological processes in wastewater treatment. Positive species interactions, such as facilitation, are critical to increase the productivity of biomass and nutrient recovery. In this study, we show the potential of using ecological principles, including interspecific facilitation processes of aquatic plants, Azolla, and the worm Olicheta tubifex. Oh, that's the wrong worm. Oh my god. Leachate juice might be useful in culturing. Let me look that up. Leachate juice. Yes. A toxic landfill garbage juice that's a hazardous byproduct of waste. Yes. Feed that to your worms, man. See what happens. What's the worst that could happen? Your fish could start, like, I don't know, growing different limbs. I mean, sludge reduction using aquatic worms under different aeration regimes. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, this is what we're talking about. That juice. This is what I was trying to get to. Do we have the full PDF? Oh my god. We need to find the full PDF. It gave me the full text before. Ah! Here we go. Here we go. Cloudflare, let us through. This is actually insane. They got a cover. They actually got a whole cover art for the worms. Look at this ball of worms. Why are we surprised that worms are the driest eaters? Who was supposed to slurp the sludge if not for the worms? The plecos! The cories, what do you mean? Oh my god, look at this. Proposition: sludge predation by worms and extended aerobic and anaerobic bioconversion processes show high similarities in solids reduction potential, yet are worlds apart in process time. Exopolymer hydrolysis, including polypeptides, is, as far as worms are concerned, the key to efficient waste-activated sludge degradation. This thesis. Worm intestines are a breeding ground for proteolytic bacteria. Waste-activated sludge predation by worms followed by anaerobic digestion is as effective in solid reduction as any state-of-the-art pre-treatment process. So these are all the propositions of this paper. Water treatment technologies can clean water only when the social construct of politics, policies, and legislative enforcement allow for it. Oh my gosh. I think this is like a... Let's see. Delft University of Technology. This is kind of fun. Tapping out will check back in when I inevitably get page 9 and you're in hour 5. Bro. This looks like... Tubifex is getting a lot of love in these. Tubifex is getting a lot of love. Okay, the overall, like, I'm trying to talk about the Blackworms, but I keep getting distracted because the Tubifex isn't all the cool stuff. So, let's just skip past all the pages in another language. Let's just go to the end, the conclusion, and see what they found here. And then we'll move along, because I do want to get into the Blackworm nutrition one more time. So, just give me 1 second. Good night, Aaron. Good night. So their conclusion was the microbial community analysis revealed the worm feces produced through the predation of WAS shared more similarities, with predated protein-rich substrates as compared to the sludge itself. All right, so the Tubifex got a protein preference here. Okay. I'm going to link this in the chat because it just seems like there's a lot in here. Idea for another stream, digestion and ram's horns. You'd be amazed. Yeah. I'm sure I would be amazed. There's a lot of things I think I'd be amazed by. Okay. Let me see where my freaking tab is. Trying to get my Blackworm nutrition up here. I mean, I feel like we already kind of got, they got high protein, they got the fats, you know what I mean? We kind of got the breakdown there. So I feel like what I'm looking for is a comparison. Blackworm nutritional content. That's kind of what I'm looking for. But I don't know. It seems like as far as culturing them, it wouldn't be that different than the Tubifex, except for I don't know if it would be as much about, like, quote unquote a substrate as just like feeding them. Because the Tubifex, it was like you run the water over them constantly. I mean, they do mob the food and stuff, but the Blackworms seem like they move very quickly onto things. At least the ones I have, if I put food, they go into it. I don't know, man. I don't really know. It's funny, like, a lot of the Blackworm stuff is about feeding axolotls. I don't care about axolotls. Come on. That is not what I'm trying to look at worms for. But it seems like I've totally lost track of everything that I ever wanted to look at in my entire life. So I now retreat to what I know. Okay. How you guys doing? We hanging in there? How long have we been streaming? Oh, okay. We almost to 2 hours. That's not been too bad. Not been too bad at all. All right. So the Blackworms is a novel organism for in vivo pharmacology education. I'm looking at this just to see if there's anything about culturing them. Okay, aquatic worm inhabiting shallow freshwater ponds, lakes, marshes. Yep. They've been characterized as an indicator organism for toxic compounds in aquatic systems. Touching the interior of the L. variegatus results in retraction and reversal of body position, whereas touching the tail elicits helical swimming. Okay, some things we're familiar with so far. Here we go, culture. Okay, so they cultured the L. variegatus from alpha fish foods, ALFA fish foods, and laboratory reared in aquariums. Alpha fish foods. This looks old. This looks old. Alpha Fish Co. LCC. Is this the same thing? Oh my gosh. This website's scaring me. This loading, yeah. I don't know what's going on there. Okay, they used a UV-treated deionized water produced by Elix Essential UV water purification system. The artificial pond water was continuously aerated and water filtered using commercial air stones and aquarium filters, respectively. Sounds like some damn sponge filters. The aquariums were kept at room temperature, 8 to 21 degrees Celsius. Subjected to a 16 to 8 hour light dark cycle. Cultures were fed the tetramin flakes and 10 milligrams of spirulina weekly. The populations were maintained for a minimum of 3 months before experimentation to limit variation in the colony. Individual worms used in experiments were randomly selected, lacked any obvious morphological defects, and ranged from 2 to 8 centimeters in length. Okay, interesting. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward to culture them. It's just decent water, feed them regularly, aerate. It seems like air seems to be big for them, aerating the water. Okay. Let's see. Blackworm reproduction. Aussie fish keeping. I want to see the blackworm farming. That's what I want to see. Blackworm farming. I want to see the oh my god. Now this looks terrifying. Select aquatics, culturing blackworms. The truth is they thrive and breed at room temperature. Their reproduction can be slow. They require 2 essential foods. The bacteria that forms on unbleached paper towels and a crushed fish food. This sounds like it smells rank. This. Look at this. A Sterilite 3-drawer dresser. They got PVC flow through here. I'll put the link to this in the chat. I don't know that this would be the. I mean, the setup with the worms are in isn't the problem. It's the sound of how this might smell. I found you could put 1 pound of worms in a drawer without fear of overpopulation. Yeah, okay. This is not for me. We must continue. Greg Jones, Greg's Fish Room. What kind of stuff? He's got a blackworm table. Okay, so this is more like kind of like the thing that Branton is up to. Bob Bravo said plastic shells. I'm scared. Yeah, no, I was not feeling that at all. So Branton, he keeps them just like in a normal fish tank setup, and he feeds them, and they go to the food, and I think that's the way to go. I mean, he's just got a blackworm table. It looks like it's all gravel. Is that fucking dead fish that he put in there? Looks like they mob it. They mob the food. Yeah, it seems pretty simple. Steve said that's what I want to do. The table. Fish to Keeping said Greg Jones. Haven't heard that name in a while. Yeah. I mean, this looks like kind of the way to go. Something big and shallow. And I guess probably the gravel not be too deep, so they fucking hide and you can't get to them. And then well aerated. He's got a sponge, some kind of sponge thing, like at every single corner. It looks like it's flowing, water shimmering. Fish to Keeping said I have a Pleco bottle opener he sent me a few years ago. Oh, nice. Mick said, "Oh no, not my hockey table." I mean, if the plastic shelves didn't scare you. Now I'm trying to find. Oh, this might be it. I was trying to find the pictures I had found. There was somewhere that like had pictures of like the farm whole process. I think this is it. Where you can see the ponds that they're farming them in. So it's just big ponds outside, and you just look at, you can see the red through the water, how many worms, and then these are the tubs inside where they clean them out at. So this is like some old site, and I believe this is the one where it goes to this, that it describes how they actually do it. Oh man. They're listing stuff from 1999. I'm just like, oh my god. Okay, so check this out. So these are three production ponds, and this is them out. So they have the nets above for like keeping the birds and stuff out, and then here they are with big buckets, and they're raking the worms. Fish to Keeping said, link that site. I want to look. Here you go. Link in the chat. So far, these white worms have been fairly easy and consistent. I'm having surplus worms for the last few weeks. Yeah, we're gonna do a white worm stream. White worms for me have been way better than grindle worms as far as just success. I had success with grindle worms for a brief period, but I don't know. They just seem easier to mess up. But yeah, so they go out, they put them in these big buckets, right? This is where they harvest. And then they have a cement purging pond, so they put them in a cement pond to purge them for like, I want to say it was like 10 days. I'm trying to see if we can stumble upon the page that has the actual text on it. But it's pretty intensive because like they grow them outside, but then you got to bring them in, purge them and stuff. And then there's another cleaning process that involves like high heat or something like that. This is it's one of these old sites that like every button you click on doesn't technically do what it's supposed to, but like if you click around enough, like you might find something kind of interesting. So it has stuff on the other worms. So I did put the link in chat if you want to check this site out. It's kind of fascinating. But it's not the site that I'm remembering. Okay, so this is one talking about that one culture method. This is the Simply Discus, where it says, to set up the culture, brown paper towels are placed in a suitable container such as a fish tank. Clean water is poured to a shallow depth. Aeration. The decomposing paper towels and associated microflora/fauna will serve as food for the worms. There's got to be a better way than, like, this is 2002. This is how they were doing it. I just feel like paper towels, like, this is what people came up with. I don't know. I'm just having a hard time accepting that putting paper towels in a fish tank with worms and then putting in flake food is, like, the way to go. This sounds like it just smells absolutely horrendous. But apparently this is a basic culture designed for blackworms using science experiments. Works well. Has a few drawbacks for the aquarium hobbyist in that paper towels start to break down quickly. It's tough to separate the worms from bushy paper towels to give you clean worms to feed your fish. It requires multiple washes. Yeah, we don't even need to look any further into that. That is useless. Useless for our applications. Okay, blackworm farming. I'm still trying to find the place where it like talks about processing the blackworms. This was a weird one I came across. This guy took a single blackworm and then went and tried to do a culture starting from it. I would not recommend using a scalpel to cut a worm on your finger, but to each their own. To each their own. I need a fresh starter of grindleworms, Steve said. Hey, man. I'm sticking with the blackworm. I'm sticking with the white worms. And then eventually we'll get our way to the Tubifex. You know what I mean? Okay. Blackworm farming, aquaculture. It's like, what did I type to get the perfect result? where I found this random site that had like the pictures of them farming it and all the pieces. Let's see. California blackworm. What you see, what you get. Get a little sledge worm juice and a fresh cut. No big deal. Hey man. Oh, that's what I should do. California blackworm farm. California blackworm farm. That's what we need to do. Farm. Maybe purge. Blackworm farm purging. What could go wrong? Yeah, that's what you meant to say. What could go wrong? That makes a lot more sense. Oh, okay. Guideline for handling new shipment of blackworms? Yeah, this... Bringing in blackworms seems like an absolute pain in the neck. Oh, man. I know it's in one of these places. This is like a bizarre, absolutely bizarre world when you're going into sites that were made in like the 90s. Okay, pics of our production pool. Okay, I think it must be on the Simply Discus site. William, is that how you get your worm powers? Drinking the worm slush? Okay, Simply Discus Blackworm Farm. Ah! No, I thought this was it. Post from 2009, what sorcery? I'm telling you, I was on an old site and it had everything that I ever wanted to see. Literally everything I ever wanted to see about the blackworms. And I was happy. I was so happy that I actually wanted to stream. I wanted to come and talk to you guys. Risk the bullying. Risk it all. Just for some damn worms. Okay. How to farm blackworms. Because I don't want the culture. I want the farm. I want the ponds. Okay, there we go. Blackworm ponds. That's what we need. Blackworm ponds. I could become the ultimate fish food by just... I don't think you could just eat blackworms and become the ultimate fish food. I don't think that is enough. I think you're going to have to do more. But it's interesting because here in 2009, like, they're posting the pictures of the blackworm farm. Like, we see the tubs and stuff. But it's the one where they describe, like, their holding process and how they take the worms out and then they, like, purge them and then they expose them to, like, heat or something insane. That's what I'm trying to get to. But honestly, we need to do culturing blackworms. Well, we need to just see. I need like a video from like Indonesia or something, like the other day, where it's like someone that just has 1 billion worms outside in a tub. Because they're definitely right. The American farms and stuff, they're not posting enough content. My Balana socks are in love, Steve said. Bro. So he's talking about how to... No, see, this isn't enough for me. I need a pond. California California blackworm pond. See, it thought I was gonna look up California girls, bro. Are you kidding me? I don't care about California girls. We're here to look at the blackworms, but no one has the farm. Blackworm farm. Blackworm pasteurization. Oh, that's a good idea. Blackworm pasteurization. That's a good search term. Blackworm pasteurization. Rip the blackworm farm. The big flood destroyed the OG ones in California and later flood at the Florida farms. Okay, blackworm. Let's see, purge. And then heat. Ooh. This is getting weird fast. Once you start putting quotations around things. Dude has a kickstand. Wait, what? What'd I miss? Swedish Nancy Grindle found a worm perfectly aquarium hobby back in the 1940s and 50s. Wrote an article. Later, another worm was... Oh, wow. Grindle worm is named after a person. Okay. What a life. Look at this Reddit title. I've heard of people cleaning the poo out of the earthworms. Wow. The things that come up when you start looking up blackworms and purge. Okay. Well, one thing is for sure. There's not enough blackworms out there. And there's not enough people pointing a camera at the blackworms for us to look at. We gotta look at pictures from 2009 and just cry. Okay. Australian blackworm farm. Okay, we got Australian blackworms. About us. Okay, hold up. We're getting some pictures here. Flow through system 3-tier. This looks pretty serious. Yeah, they got a video? Oh, this is for like a freeze-dried thing. Oh, Aquamate. This is some Australian chill. Next t-shirt, not enough of worms. Yeah, we need more worms. There's a Canada aqua farm. Australian blackworms are proud to partner with following businesses in Australia and around the world. Many of them are distributors of Australian blackworms in your area. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, we got Australian worm farms. Okay, that's not quite what we're looking for. Okay, what's the blackworm Latin name again? It was Lumbricurus variegatus. Thinking of converting all my tanks to blackworm cultures. You need a blackworm table. Honestly, I should just take one of my low boys and just make it a blackworm tank. Like, just fill it only like a little bit. And then now we just have a blackworm tank. Blake's Aquatic, he's a cool dude. Watched his stream 5 years ago. Yeah, he has some good videos. I'm honestly tempted to just look at these old forum posts. Does Eastern Aquatics so look at how many ponds they have compared to that other place we're looking at. Like, that other place had like 3 ponds. This Eastern Aquatics, they got a lot of ponds. Their website is also chaos. Absolute chaos. Oh, they're featured in Cultivating Live Foods. In a book. Okay. Give me 1 second. Same here. I'm now finishing my fish tanks. So wait, you're getting rid of all your fish tanks and just going to blackworms. This is real? No more killifish? Just blackworms? This is what we're doing now? I'm kind of disappointed. I'm a little bit disappointed. Our blackworms get around. Our blackworms are raised in controlled conditions, devoid of any fish, and are quarantined prior to quarantine. Talking about you quarantine your blackworms. There's something kind of funny about this. Our blackworms are used in many captive. Okay, but do you have a blog actually about like what your process is? Oh my god, a quality distributor with Christian values of blackworms, macroalgae, discus, and brine shrimp? Are you for fucking real? What about the values of posting some photos of these ponds? Okay? Come on, bro. I'll walk across the pond water. You put up the photo. Give me the location. I'll perform some miracles. First miracle, a lot of blackworms gonna disappear. That's gonna be the first step. Okay. The Christian worm looked weird. This is like VeggieTales gone wrong. Eastern Aquatics. 9 out of 10 aquatic animals approve. William LBO, it's a miracle we've been robbed. They got terms and conditions. You must read all the following terms and conditions. Watch the video below before checking out. By placing this order, the buyer acknowledges they viewed the video below on the proper care of your worms. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, no one is not... No one is...
This video is to help you understand how to keep your worms.
This is a 4-minute video.
About the purchase. Not watching this and following the directions is not an excuse to file a claim. This is 1 pound of worms here, which most people don't realize.
I just want to say, like, the Christian values and the tone of his voice and this giant ass watch that doesn't fit his wrist properly, flopping around everywhere. Yeah, man. I need a little bit more forgiveness. Okay. The Christian values would be refunding my shipping costs. Because right here it says...
Most people don't realize there's about 20,000 worms. That's right, 20,000 worms.
Wow.
The biggest mistake people make is ordering too many, but the biggest mistake is keeping them too crowded. We recommend 150 square inches of surface area.
Within 1 hour delivery time, if there are any issues or greater than 25% of blackworms said, you must email. See, this is what I'm saying. Where's the Christian values, bro? 1 hour? 1 hour? It took Jesus more than an hour to come back from the dead. I'm just saying.
A lot of people, these come from a
I'm just saying.
Company. A lot of people will use 4 Tupperware containers, 1 of them.
Well, make sure you watch this video before ordering from Eastern Aquatics, or you might be legally in trouble or something. Okay. The Christian values are the only thing keeping the worms from forming a pentagram and summoning worm Satan. The worms forming a pentagram is pretty hilarious. Okay. So, here's one thing I found. So we were talking about the sludge. Here's some of the organic waste that they're thinking about feeding these worms here. We have a nice graph. Organic waste equals worm production equals fish farming. Okay? And this is actually part of a patent a tubular patented worm reactor concept adapted to produce a high-quality animal feed source by converting safe food industry byproducts into worm biomass. The freshwater worm, Lumbriculus variegatus, blackworm, were selected for its purpose. Okay, its macronutrient composition matches with fish nutritional guidelines. Ooh, they had a reference for that. Maybe we can look at that reference and see what the hell. But okay. So this is real life starch sludge right here. You want to order a coffin of worms? I say go for it. Or you can get some starch sludge, make your own. Starch sludge, we got the worms, we got the biomass, we got a trickling filter, and we got fecal pellets. Okay. So they fed the worms directly with suspended biosolids. They used a mesh column which acts as a worm carrier, separation between worm feed and water column. The feed particles, worms, and fecal pellets can be separated and collected. Okay. Nick, please share these in the Discord for later viewing. Yes, remind me to do that. I'll put this link here. Ooh. Now what's interesting is, okay, this little thing here is being hosted on this weird ass site that I already linked earlier. So I think the page that I want to find about the blackworms is somewhere on this site. But as you can see, like, this is just a wonderland of web design, and I just think that it's going to be impossible for me to, like, I don't know what magic, combination of buttons I pressed. Oh, look at this, very pretty killifish, to get to the thing I've been looking for this whole time. But yeah, this is Aquatic Foods Blackworm Co., which is the one that doesn't exist anymore. Now they got that eBay store with all the different foods. We've talked about them a few times. The 2000s web design is strong. Absolutely. It's absolutely strong. Okay. Where do we go from here? Let me see. Do I have anything left? I feel like, what is there left that we need to figure out about the blackworms? I guess the reproduction rate is one of the main things we haven't nailed down. I think generally how to culture them seems pretty straightforward, so I don't know. Supposedly they don't reproduce sexually that much, but at the same time, I don't know. I think that I don't think they need the rough substrate to break up necessarily, I think is maybe what I'm remembering. Okay. Look, the Science Kit and Boreal Laboratories. Conditions for customer ownership. Wow. The question of Tubifex versus blackworms, what is better for fish and cultures? Okay. Well, the Tubifex stuff is easy to find. The blackworms, it seems like they have good. They have a good composition. None of the things so far mentioned a weak point in their nutrition that I recall. So I guess if we look at the Tubifex and it's just like the similar, like, oh, it's a great food. Then, at least on the nutrition front. But I think that probably the Tubifex, I think they reproduce faster. I'm pretty sure they reproduce faster, but that's just my opinion. I did blackworms years ago. I put them in trays of gravel and stirred it once in a while. Yep. The thing is, as the people that culture the Tubifex, I mean, and Branton, he cultures the blackworms and it seems to work well. And I actually had a blackworm culture. I still have the culture, but like there was a point where I was having a lot and I could feed them, but then I kind of overfed them, so I think I kind of messed up. But like the people that have Tubifex cultures, it just seems like they have more worms. You know what I mean? That's kind of like what I look at. Like the people with the Tubifex, they seem to actually have a lot of Tubifex. The people with the blackworms, like for instance, like the president of ACM, Mandy, she's like saying she invented using blackworms in a breeder box. Okay. I haven't seen blackworms in the ACM auction much. I'm not seeing any bulk blackworm sales happening from anyone that cultures them on a hobbyist level. So my point is that the people that have the blackworm cultures, I guess Jeff, you could tune in because you have a blackworm culture. It seems like you can get it to a place where you can feed it regularly, but like it doesn't seem like people are just drowning in blackworms like the Daphnia and Moina, the people that really are get those going. They're just shipping out hundreds of Daphnia and stuff, from their ponds. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe people need to like just put the blackworms in like some tubs outside, and that would be like one way. Like maybe people just need a bigger like the blackworm table. But even that blackworm table, it had a lot of blackworms, but it wasn't like the pictures of the farms where it's just like a sea of blackworms. So I don't know. Jeff said it's very slow. Yeah. So I mean, it seems like it's good to have. You get a blackworm culture. You have enough blackworms to feed a couple specific things maybe regularly, but like the Tubifex feels like it has more potential for maybe. Okay, so this one it says Tubifex is the best natural food for fish and prawn due to its size. The nutritional, I guess size is a good thing to consider too. Well, blackworms, every time you store, they double, but you have to wait for them to grow. Jeff said the blackworms only as a trigger. Okay. A little bit of... Seems you got to find the right food and ratios. Well, so that's one thing that we need to look into, and that's going to be like looking at the different enzymes the worms have and stuff, because I do think that maybe some of the foods I try and feed certain worms, it's like they can't even really eat it that well until it's started like rotting a bit. So, because again, like some of the Tubifex studies and stuff, they're like fermenting stuff first before feeding it to them. So I kind of feel like that might also be part of it. I know my cursed LFS farms blackworms. So I work up the courage. They show me their trays. I'll share the results. Okay, let us know. I mean, it seems like it does require to get like a lot of blackworms. Maybe because they're slower. It does seem to require a lot of space. So here it says that Tubifex is the best natural food for fish and prawn due to its size and nutritional content. 50 to 55% protein, fat 8 to 10%, crude fiber 2 to 5%, ash 4 to 7%, and water 8 to 10%. Compared to other natural foods such as Daphnia, the nutrient content of Tubifex is higher and has an equal nutritional quality compared to Artemia. Okay, so from some of the numbers we saw from the blackworms, it seems like the blackworms might have more protein in them. I feel like it was like a 60% situation. And here they talk about fermenting stuff to culture them. Tubifex worms versus blackworms. Has anyone done this research? Okay. Fantastic tropical fish. April 2023. Blackworms versus Tubifex. A comprehensive comparison. Okay. Let's see if this is AI slop or not. These live aquarium foods differ notably in few key aspects: color, size, feeding habits, health risks. Wait, this is it? Wait, there's like no comparison. Yeah, this is AI slop. We've got. Look at this. The planted tank form, 2010. Blackworms versus Tubifex's cleanup crew. A couple fish said it's AI slop. LOL. Jack Funzar said, wow. Yep, that's it. I had a feeling. Okay. I think sometimes the forum stuff is more informative anyway, just seeing what people are talking about. So 2011, I have a 29-gallon NPT with a soil substrate. I wanted to tridivore. I bought blackworms. I want to colonate. I did some research. I learned that they recoil and swim away when touched. Mine do not do that and curl into one ball of 100 worms. I'm now suspicious I was sold Tubifex worms, not blackworms. But now we know that the blackworms, they do have a defense where they curl into a ball, so it could still be blackworms. A couple of fishes forms still rookie are the best for hobby stuff. Yeah, definitely. And that's another thing I think why Tubifex probably will end up, because remember, with the blackworms, they said they like never find mature individuals. The Tubifex worms do reproduce sexually, so like they're growing, they're reproducing sexually. They don't have to split, you know. So yes, I think you still got the adult worm for a bit after it's reproduced. So I think just from that, also, I feel is another reason they probably, even though I don't have exact numbers, like just because of the way they reproduce, it sounds like the Tubifex would be faster. You don't have to wait for them to regenerate after being cut in half. And then remember how much they regenerate was like the way they regenerate depended upon like how many segments from the interior and stuff they were cut off from. So there's things with that too. Temper said ChatGPT actually spits out a nice table if you go blackworms versus Tubifex. All right, we can try that. We can get into the AI slop. This guy writing should I return wait, should I return them, sending them back to the breeder? Wait. Sounds like Tubifex running the war? Wait, this guy said, wait, blackworms also appeal to me because they reproduce via fission and segments become new worms, whereas Tubifex breeds sexually. Will they work just the same, or should I return them and find real blackworms? Yeah, that's funny. How do you return the black rise? Just as AI's getting smarter? Why does he care that the Tubifex breeds sexually? Is that the Christian values coming through? I don't want these nasty worms. They're breeding sexually. Okay. Let's do the AI slop comparison. Compare the nutritional value of Tubifex worms versus California blackworms for the purpose of culturing freshwater ornamental fish. Please give a detailed breakdown also of their reproduction rate and average size. Thank you. All right, let's see. Let's see what the old robot says. Okay. And we can go to the sources at the very least. I've looked at this. This is a Kata articles. It's got a breakdown. It's kind of using some older stuff though. Like this is 1998 and 2002. So I don't know. But okay, Tubifex. They got multiple sources here. 46% crude fat. I don't know about that. 50 to 60% protein. Okay. So, comparison and relevance. If we compare, blackworms may offer slightly higher protein content depending. Okay, that's something that I thought I had noticed. Tubifex fat reported. Okay, Tubifex a bit more fat than the blackworms, but similar. Probably influenced by diet too, so not a big deal. Minerals and trace elements. Okay, higher protein of blackworms is a plush. Blackworms likely higher nutritional option because of more protein. It's just based off the higher protein. I feel like we need to break down like the actual content. You think the newt breakdown of certain bugs have changed since 1990s? I do think that some things could be updated. Like sometimes, for instance, some of the ones they're comparing the composition of them depending on what they're fed upon, which I think is relevant. So I don't know. In the 1990s, did they feed it on industrial sludge and corn or whatever? I like, at least if it's 20 more years, they could have added more data points. Johnny said, does Sakari freeze-dried Tubifex be any different than live worm? So far, we've seen that they saw that there was a reduction in growth for angelfish when they just used the freeze-dried versus the live. So the freeze-dried does seem to lose a little bit of nutritional value. JP Jeffries said pureed roadkill. Okay. So that's the nutrition from the robot. They're just giving it to the blackworms because of more protein. But average size, 20 to 60 millimeters for the Tubifex. Reproduction, growth to maturity, reproduction by eggs and asexual splitting is possible. Growth to maturity in as little as 30 days under good conditions, some as low as 2 weeks. Up to 300 eggs per worm in 100 days. I already know that this is faster than blackworms. Let's see, this is an aquarium breeder. Oh, what aquarium breeder has a freaking comparison? ChatGPT is just copying this whole entire thing. I think my basic search of blackworms as a Tubifex nutritional is more useful. Look, you guys said to try the ChatGPT. I was doing this myself. Okay, we're on this now. All right. They're saying they think that the blackworms prefer cleaner environments. I mean, Tubifex are called sludge worms, so. But I'm telling you, the sexual production up to 300 eggs per worm and 100 eggs, and the blackworms are just asexual splitting. Like, there's no way that the Tubifex aren't faster. Let's compare the color. We need that on the table. Unlimited. If you cut it in half, the two parts will grow into two new ones. Yeah, but how fast? Okay. We got as a live food. Oh my god, man. This is just. Tubifex is live food. Pros: high nutrient content, vitamin and minerals, easy to culture. Cons: require some time. Wait. What do they say as the blackworms as a live food? Oh, they only compare the Tubifex and blackworms here. Jesus. I'll try ChatGPT to pick my lottery number. I like that. I like that. Okay, well, this is one thing, I guess. They're easier to culture, less tolerant of less ideal water, less oxygen, which is a plus for hobbyists. However, the reproduction rate may be slower than other live foods depending on conditions. Okay, reproduction for the blackworms. Doubling of biomass. One guide states under optimal conditions, populations can double every 2 weeks. Good luck with that. Man, this is just terrible to read through. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, what's the conclusion here? I mean, it does seem the blackworms more demanding, requires cleaner, well aerated culture. Because when we're reading about the Tubifex, I think they have more ways to deal with low oxygen. Jack's putting art said my biggest concern with Tubifex is whether they may get into my pipes to clog them up. Fair enough. Ah, Ada. Ada is starting to attack me because I'm not paying enough attention to her. She's just like sitting underneath. I see you, Ada. I see you. You want everyone else to see you too? Okay. So let's see here. It didn't really give me. Okay. Which one doubles faster? Let's just ask that. It's attention time, it seems, yeah. Having Tubifex get into your septic tank, the horror. Whoops. I'm sure. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. So it's saying that it's saying that they think the blackworms are faster because you can split them and it's continuous and doesn't depend on mating or egg development. But like, I don't know, man. I don't think ChatGPT has good information on this. Because to me, 100 eggs. Well, how many eggs was it? 300 eggs per worm in 100 days, and they can get to maturity in as little as 2 weeks. And they're saying that the blackworms, you can double their population or biomass every 2 weeks. I don't know, man. Someone do the numbers. I just feel like if you got 100 worms, okay, got 100 worms, 300 eggs in 100 days. Oh my god, bro. Test it, Nick? Yeah, I'm gonna get some Tubifex worms. Timber said Tubifex is less work. There's a lot of videos and cameras and pipes showing Tubifex implementation that I spent too much time watching. So now everyone's getting to say numbers for ChatGPT for the next draw. That's funny. Can Tubifex worms clog your pipes? Now I'm like scared. Oh my god. Tubifex worms clogging pipes. I mean, I'd probably be screwed already, right? Smart person, you can break No, I agree with smart person. Yeah, you can break this blackworm into 5 pieces and get 5 worms, but we don't know how quickly the blackworm will grow to full size. But also, one of the first things we read was saying that blackworms, like where they get cut, impacts like how many segments they grow back or something like that. Like, but yeah, I agree. How long for blackworms to regenerate? Okay. Let's see. We might be onto something. Patterns of segmental regeneration in freshwater oligocete. Let's see. Yep. Okay. Blackworms. Okay. The Tubifex worms don't regenerate as well. Okay. Fragment segments. Okay. Regenerated tail segments. So this is how many fragment segments. Okay. So maybe doubling population in Tubi doesn't mean biomass is doubled, just organism count. The exponential make a higher production. You don't have to feed them pea-pop. You don't have to feed them poop? Well, you don't have to feed the Tubifex poop either. They just can eat poop better. That's all. That's all. This one's saying head and tail regeneration after 3 weeks in a 28 segment long fragment originating from the posterior half of a donor worm. Okay, this is like a study guide, like how to run a class on the worms. Okay. I might find something here. Asexual reproduction by fission. Okay, they're known to reproduce by breaking up into 2 or more fragments, each of which refers to the missing part and becomes a fully functional individual. Smart person says it's a good diagram. Picture A shows that I think it showed 14 or 28 days you had a 100% increase in segment count on the worm. Thank you, smart person, for living up to your name. Thank you. Oh yeah, and let me put the link to the stuff I'm clicking on in the chat real quick. We're getting to the bottom of this. Cryptic diversity within Lumbriculus. Opening the can of worms. Very cute. Very cute. This is almost like too detailed. I'm just trying to get like a... Oh, they have a thing on culture in it here. Can be easily maintained in laboratory spring water. Worms are fed fish flakes or pellets, rolled oats, and spirulina over a range of temperatures, typically 15 Celsius to room. Microbes in the culture serve as a source of nutrition. Strips of brown paper towels are added to mimic the leaf litter of natural habitats. Just put some leaves in there, god damn it. Okay, sandy or other fine sediment types can be added. Some labs aerate the worms if a large number. Okay, the best are maintained in water from the clan. Okay. As worms proliferate, they can be subcultures. Ectoparasites can be associated with Lumbriculus obtained commercially from natural habitats. Their level can get to the point where survival of worms is jeopardized and cultures clash. However, these ectoparasites can be removed by treating cultures with 0.6% sodium chloride in spring water. Okay. Okay. We got a figure here. Okay. Interesting. I don't know. I'm gonna have to get some Tubifex and some Blackworms and do a little bit of a comparison. Which one's faster? Problem is, the ideal way would like to be to have an actual like tank, you know, like 2 10-gallons to dedicate to the comparison. But like I don't have 2 10-gallons right now to dedicate to worms. I really don't. I mean, even if I did, I just know that I'd eventually put something else in there very quickly. You know? I'm sorry. The regeneration of Lumbriculus variegatus requires post-amputation production of reactive oxygen species. Interesting. I mean, that makes sense. Add more tanks. Pin can't wait for his. Yeah. I need to figure out... Well, one, I need to figure out when I'm going to stream a Corey again, but then what we're going to talk about. We keep floating some different topics. There's just too many different things we could talk about, but... I feel like I'm not sure where I lean. I feel like she's leaning a certain way. We'll have to find out. There's a lot of stuff we could get into. Okay, so they starved the worms 40 hours prior to all experiments. They only used full-grown worms. Okay. Okay. Amputating the damn worms. Okay, the general flavoprotein and NOx inhibitor was used to inhibit endogenous production. Worms were pre-treated in solutions of blah 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 for 6 hours prior to amputation. After amputation, worm fragments were replaced into the exposure solutions. Untreated worms and uncut worms exposed to the same solutions were included as control for mortality. After 6 hours post-amputation, worms were removed from exposure solutions and replaced in AFW for 8 days to track regeneration. Okay. Okay, we got some fluorescent intensity. Oh my god, bro. This is a lot of information right now. There's a lot to take in. Okay, this is a good graph. Normalized area versus amount of days of amputation, and then the different solutions they were exposed to. Okay. Okay, return oxygen species are necessary for generation of other animals. We hypothesize it's necessary for the worms. Okay. I want to know how fast. In simple terms that I can read and understand quickly enough on stream. But a good thing about this, guys, is you can look. We can talk about this in the Discord later after everyone's looked at it and determined what everything means. Because sometimes, like something like this, I'm gonna have to sit down and read for a long time. But there's just a lot going on here. Jesus. All right. Smart person. You keep saying smart things. What do you think? Tubifex or blackworms? Smart person. Reading the paper about segmental regeneration war. It looks like the rate for blackworms is about 125% growth in 2 weeks. So the population can double within 11 days. Thank God for smart person, man. Right on time. I like blackworms, but that's because I find them fun to watch. Well, the thing that definitely can be said about the blackworms is that they have a lot more complexity to them as far as behavior than the Tubifex, because they've got the unique, responses, the inversing, the swimming in a helix, the grouping into a ball. Definitely a bit more active. Okay. Well, speaking of which, I think there's one more thing I want to get in. Well, not one more thing. There's just more I want to get into as far as looking at more blackworm stuff. I don't know, man. It's just hard to tell. Like, everyone says that the blackworms seem to kind of be slow, but then maybe it's just if they're doubling in 11 days, that seems like pretty fast. So maybe it's a scaling issue, like no one has a big enough thing for them, or there's a food issue, or a water quality, oxygen issue. You know what I mean? That's kind of like what I'm trying to think. You put them in the bare bottom tank and they won't grow as quickly because their bodies don't break up. Well, that's another thing. A lot of people say, like, use gravel so they can break their bodies up and stuff. But some of the stuff we're reading today, like they're talking about using sand and like finer stuff. So I think that's kind of interesting. Which one is it? I wonder which culture is more stable, which is more prone to crashing. It seems like the Tubifex are more tolerant of bad parameters, so perhaps them. Just off of that. As far as clashing. The blackworms that have taken root in my quarry tank are in the sand and seem happy. Ben says, my preference is blackworms. Love food that my pea puffers can hunt when bored. Okay, well, that's another plus for the blackworms since they do move around and survive a bit more. Perhaps also it's just better as a persistent thing in the tank, for sure. Here's something a little bit interesting. Analysis of aquatic worms and fluctuated digested sludge and extraction of extracellular polymeric substances and wastewater treatment plants. Hold up. Let me get it started. Opening a PDF real quick. I think this is the one. Yes, okay. This is the one paper that I wanted to make sure I went over on stream. We're gonna have to skip around. Smart person, you like blackworms? Maybe you'll like this one. This is 200 pages. Sludge reduction by aquatic worms and wastewater treatment. So this is one of like the main things though. Besides like the food aspect, it's like the incorporating into a sump ecosystem, whatever the hell kind of thing, you know? Wastewater treatment. Come on, get that recirculating all your tanks on one sump, just full of blackworms eating everything. Let's go. We got chapters, so we can just pick which chapter is actually probably kind of convenient. Okay, chapter 1 is Introduction to Sludge Reduction Research with Aquatic Worms. Chapter 2, Descriptions of Aquatic Worms and Sludge Reduction Research. Chapter 3, Population Dynamics of Free-Swimming Ellidia and 4 Dutch Wastewater Treatment Plants in Relation to Process Characteristics. Chapter 4, These Worms Get Shit Done. That's what it seems like. Chapter 4, Development of a Test to Assess the Sludge Reduction Potential of Lumbriculus variegatus in Waste Sludge. Chapter 5, Factors Influencing the Sludge Reduction by the Worms. Chapter 6, The Effects of Sludge Consumption by the Worms on Sludge Characteristics. And Chapter 7, Comparison of Sludge Reduction between the worms and Cecilio tubificae. This is a Tubifex worm. Apparently it's outdated. I don't know. Some kind of worm in the Natidae family. Timber said that's actually a try idea. You could justify the space. Only part is the same issue. The issue of having one system disease spread. So it's interesting. I've seen some really good fish keepers have the one. I think depending on how you set it up, you can have enough filtration things where the disease spread is not as big of a concern. Because if you think about it, if you set it up right, the water's all going to the sump. It's being processed by all the stuff in there, all the competing worms, bacteria, and stuff. But then however it's being pumped out, you could have that water go through some kind of filtration that could remove a lot of things, whether it be UV. I think there's a way to set it up where disease is less of a concern, but I don't know. It also could be a thing where it's like maybe you have one rack and that's all in one sump. You know what I mean? And you have another, so Still multiple tanks on one thing, but maybe not like literally all of them. I don't know. Food for thought. Could also just be like a small sum, you know? I put like a 2-inch layer of that rough pond foam board stuff, yeah. Okay. Comparison of sludge reduction between these two worms and mixed cultures of hosts. Tropical fish co has most of their tanks connected in the main system, yeah. But they are running their water recirculated to quite a lot of things. Because they also have to run it through stuff that will remove medication and things like that. Okay. I think the chapter we should go into, if any stand out to you, but I think we start chapter 4, development of a test to assess the sludge. No. Maybe chapter 4 and then chapter 7, or maybe chapter 8. Ask Jody, Chris, or Johnny about it. I gotta head to bed. Haven't slept in 24 hours. So check out the rest of the stream later. Take care. Hey, thanks for stopping by, hanging out in the chat. Get some sleep. 24 hours, man. Shit, now I gotta do a 24-hour stream. You're staying up 24 hours. Okay, let's look at a new reactor concept for sludge reduction using the Blackworms. Page 125, and I did post the link. We'll look at this chapter, and then I'll go anything you guys put in live stream discussion. I'll then pull up next. So is there anything you want me to look at in the live stream discussion? So this looks like a picture of the reactor. I think we had something similar described in a thing earlier, but it looks like it's like something on top, then maybe this is the foam with the worms. Okay. A sequencing batch experiment. The sludge reduction in the worm reactor was compared to sludge reductor in a control reactor, so a reactor without the worms. Consumption by the worms results in a distinct sludge reduction, which is almost 3 times higher than the control experiment, so the reactor without the worms. Due to the configuration of the worm reactor, waste sludge, worm feces, and worms are separated, which is beneficial to further processing. The obtained results show that the proposed reactor concept has a high potential for use in full-scale sludge processing. So see, if you copied this in a filter system, then it wouldn't be necessarily, the worms in like this sump or something. You could have it in some kind of filter chain for a single tank. You know what I mean? In the hang on back, put the worms in the hang on back filter. I don't know. Okay, both municipal and non-municipal wastewaters are treated by the aerobic activated sludge process. This results in the production of large amounts of waste sludge consisting of biomass and organic material. It needs to be processed and disposed of. Regulations of its disposal becoming more stringent as it often contains contaminants such as heavy metals, organic micropollutants. Usually, incineration is the final option for sludge treatment in the Netherlands. Everyone just filling a 5-gallon bucket filters with Tubifex. This one's on Blackworms, actually. But yeah, the Tubifex, they were looking at that too. Since the sludge consists mainly of water with only a small percentage of solids, incineration is preceded by dewatering and thickening. This does sound like a lot of work. Okay. This increases environmental burden and the total sludge processing cost. The latter may be as high as 50 to 60% of the total operation. So sludge processing is half or more of the cost of processing the waste. A reduction in the amount of waste sludge is therefore attractive for both environmental and an economic point of view. This can be accomplished through mechanical, chemical, physical, and biological methods. The main disadvantages of those techniques is high energy input and the use of chemicals. A biological approach is consumption of waste sludge by higher organisms such as protozoans and metazoans. Okay. In particular, aquatic bristleworms have received a lot of attention. Oh God. Such as the free-swimming species, Aelosoma, Nias, and the Sicil tubificidae. Okay, so the free-swimming worms can appear in higher densities during peak periods. All right, all right. However, that practical application is still uncontrollable. Gotcha. So, the aquatic worms could be controllable. Perfect. So, several aquatic worms were investigated for their sludge reduction ability. We concluded that the sessile species, the blackworms, showed the high potential for sludge reduction, and Prutu said nope, nope for bristleworms. In a separate reactor, the blackworms rarely occur in wastewater treatment processes, but is widely found through Europe and North America in natural water bodies. Okay. Uses its head to forage in sediments, while its tail end, specialized for gas exchange, typically projects upwards. Okay. Hey, this one says has a clear advantage over sexually reproducing worms, such as sessile tubifecate. I don't know if that's the Tubifex worms or something else, which need a breeding stage. They can double the reduction of activated sludge. This reduction is the sum of sludge digestion by the worms and natural sludge digestion by several microbial processes that take place in activated sludge. Okay. The separation of the waste sludge and worm feces is possible with a new reactor concept in which the blackworms is immobilized in a carrier material. A smart person says in part 2 they mention sessile tubifecate. It includes T Tubifex, which are Tubifex. Okay, awesome. See, group work. Let's go. All right, we got our Tubifex comparison when it comes to sludge. Let's freaking go. Okay, initial experiment showed the separation of waste. Okay. So they're immobilized in this carrier material, so you don't have to separate the worms for the sludge. So this reactor design, you can just put them in this carrier material. The sludge comes through, they eat the sludge, it separates the worm feces and such. Fantastic. And here we get a diagram. Perfect. Guys, DIY, let's go. The blackworm reactor, the new hot aquarium hobbyist product. First person to mass DIY it. Make like one TikTok video. Everyone on Facebook is gonna go crazy. Yeah, worm reactor. Let's go. Let's go. Composting. I don't know. Put this on your sewage line. Be more green. There's something here. There's something. Just reference this. It's science. PhD developed. We've got it. This is the one. All right. An outline of the reactor is presented. Okay, it consists of a beaker (parentheses sludge compartment) containing both waste sludge and worms. The open side of the beaker is covered with a carrier material through which the worms can protrude their tails. The beaker is placed in the water compartment, partially submerged, with the carrier material facing downwards. By aerating the water compartment, the worms position themselves in the carrier material, since the blackworms feed with its head, but respires and defecates via its tail. As a result, the worm keeps their head in the sludge compartment and protrude their tails into the water compartment. The carrier material then acts as a support material for the worms and a separation layer between the waste sludge and the worm feces. The feasibility of this reactor concept was investigated with a sequencing batch experiment. So here we get our diagram. What's up, George RB3? How's it going? Dissolved oxygen measurement. So up here, the sludge compartment here. We got aeration right at the top by the sludge compartment. We got the carrier material, so the worms are in here. And the water compartment, and then the worm feces falling to the bottom here. Okay. So total suspended solids of sludge and worm feces were determined using this filter. On average, 99% of the TSS was recovered, demonstrating the accuracy of the applied method. The weight of the worms was determined by placing the worms on a perforated piece of aluminum foil. Adhering water was removed by pushing the back of the foil against dry tissue paper and gently squeezing the worms. The dry weight of the worms is 13% of its wet weight. Okay. Within a few minutes at the start of each step in the batch sequence, the worm protruded their tails through the carrier material. During the experiment, a maximum of 5% of the worms fell from the carrier material into the water compartment. The sludge within the sludge compartment settled onto the carrier material, forming a sludge blanket that did not settle through the mesh openings. So, because the worms feed, right? They feed with their heads in the sludge and their ends in the air. No, not in the sludge. Because the sludge is above and it does not go through the carrier material because it forms that blanket. Even though up is this way, the worms are eating with their heads in the sludge and their butts hanging out the bottom here. So the sludge stays up here, doesn't go through, but they just sit here happily, consume the sludge, and they're just pooping straight onto the ground. So it's like a nice, easy separation between the worm feces and everything else. Okay. I feel like this wouldn't be. Yeah, this seems like something you could have a thing that collects mulm, right? And like the mulm is like collecting above, and then you just got to figure out that whatever material would work where the mulm wouldn't go through. So maybe a super fine sponge, but something that the worms can still navigate through. Nick, did I tell you the world's most up and coming amphibian stylotum breeders in Harvard County? Yeah, Steve, you're going crazy on the breeding, man. I can't keep up. I don't breed anything. I don't breed anything as well as you do, man. You're going crazy. Biggest up and coming hobbyist breeder in the world, Big Steve. You've heard it here first for months. Best Nanochromis transvestitis breeder in the world as well. Okay. So, the daily contents of the water in the sludge compartment were replaced. The sludge compartment was filled with 100 milliliter of activated sludge from the municipal WWTP of the city. Not quarries and whiptails, though. Look, I mean, I've never seen anyone else bring whiptails that they bred to the auctions, and you've brought literally like 40 whiptails between all the auctions I've seen you go into or something crazy. Smart person said, my canister filter has so many critters in the mulm/sludge in the bottom. Blackworms got in there and seemed to be pretty happy, numerous. I mean, just, a tentative conclusion, which isn't probably something most of us have considered to some degree. Is just, yeah, maybe this just confirms it's worth it throwing some blackworms in your filter or some blackworms in a canister, because if they're breaking, we have enough evidence to say they break down the sludge. So in theory, if them themselves aren't blocking up too much of the filtration, then it could help your filters last longer without clogging, quotation mark. I don't know. It could help, finer particulates get caught because they're eating it. I don't know. This is like kind of what I'm thinking. How are your babies, the whiptails? The babies seem to be fine. I got them with some shrimp and some other fry. I see one over in the corner now. So far, so good. So far, so good. Okay, the sludge was provided in excess to the worms to ensure sludge availability was not a limiting factor. To remove coarse material from the sludge, it was first sieved using a 1mm mesh. The compartment was filled with effluent from the same treatment plant. This effluent was filtered using this thing to remove any suspended material. Okay. The worms were separated from the remaining sludge, counted, weighed. Excuse me. Okay, they were on. Okay. Here we got another graph. Perfect. Perfect. Smart person probably already read this. They probably already comprehended this whole graph. Let's take a look. So we got the cumulative suspended solids versus the time. We got sludge reduction in worm experiment and sludge reduction in the control experiment. And sludge consumption by the worms. So you can see the sludge reduction in the worm experiment is significantly greater. Steve said, I think there are also a lot of laid in the bag, so they're likely not fertile. From the picture you sent me, it did look like several of the eggs were infertile. I don't know if all of them were infertile, but definitely, yeah, several of the eggs did look like they could be infertile. But hey, you never know. I mean, if they were in separate bags, maybe they were not fertile. Okay, interesting. Comparing sludge consumption by worms with produced worm feces showed that only 25% of the consumed sludge was converted into worm feces. That means the worms digested 75% of the sludge. That's pretty wild. Bags separate? Oh yeah, then probably. That's interesting though that the killifish laid that many eggs in a bag on its own. You said it was in there for 6 days. So I wonder if they really have to just eject those eggs. That's pretty crazy though, like 25% of the sludge was turned to worm feces, and they digest 75% of the consumed sludge. That seems pretty good. That seems pretty good. Okay. Okay, as mentioned earlier, the reactor makes it possible to separate the waste sludge from worm feces. You can see the distinct compact structure of the collected feces from the setup in comparison to sludge flocks of the waste sludge. The feces settles much faster than the waste, and the SVI values are also lower. So sludge is on the left, and the worm feces is on the right. Okay. So yeah, the worms were, man, this is pretty crazy. Okay, worm biomass. The worm yield of 3% was low when compared to the yields mentioned elsewhere. So they didn't reproduce a ton. They did not reproduce a ton. Maybe they can accumulate some heavy metals and micropollutants. Smart person said in chapter 4 they mentioned the evidence of denitrification too. So some of the sludge's mass would have ended up as N2 gas that got out of a dissolution and escaped. Ah, okay. There you go. Comparison of the different digestion percentages. Okay. Let's go to where they talk about the discussion for the future. Actually, is that just this one? Yeah. General discussion and outlook towards application. Yeah. Well, sludge reduction for one. Come on. I love the graphs, man. TSS digestion percentage, time in days. The control versus... So they discovered. So okay, they're looking at the sludge reduction by worms and sludge reduction by the endogenous process. And just for refresher, I'm just gonna Google the endogenous process. Okay, endogenous process of forces is what the. That can't be it. Endogenous system. Okay, biological processes. All right. So yeah, they get to the same endpoint, but the worms get there a lot quicker. So 7 days versus like 30 days. So the worms are killing the control here. So it accelerated the digestion of municipal waste sludge with at least a factor of 2. After complete consumption of feces percentage of 100%, the maximum reduction percentage of waste sludge was around 50%. Only 17% was due to digestion. The remaining part of the 50% sludge reduction could be attributed to the endogenous sludge digestion. In addition, the final sludge reduction percentage in the presence of the worms proved to be no different than that in the absence of the worms. But it just accelerated it quite a bit. Okay. Monoculture or mixed with other species. Polluted habitats, they're often in mixed cultures. A mixed culture of aquatic worms may have advantages over monoculture. The digestion rate of the blackworms did not increase when mixed in a mixed culture with the Tubifex worms, but the growth rate did increase. Their sensitivity to toxic compounds may also decrease. Furthermore, detrimental conditions may not affect the complete worm population when it consists of different species with different characteristics. I can't believe he doesn't know what the endogenous process is. I like to look up things just to be sure I'm on the right page. Everyone can't be as confident in their knowledge as you, Big Steve. Okay? Gotta just double check these things sometimes. Alright. In batch worm density, worm growth rates, density, and worm to sludge ratio. In batch experiments, we found average biomass growth rates of 2 to 5% per day and an average number growth rate of 1 to 2% per day, and a reactor with continuous sludge supply. What's up, Jose? Hanging out looking for a while, working on resetting a bunch of smart plugs, upgraded the internet, messed up things. Oh my god, dude, I'm going through the same thing. That's why my lights are even still on. Because the internet, we changed the internet, now I gotta redo all the smart plugs. I don't see any live Tubifex worms for sale on eBay, but I do see a live blackworms, Pucci said. Yeah, Tubifex, not as popular over here. Worm to sludge ratios and population. I will say another thing we probably should look at again to differentiate them is going to be temperature too, because that's like one thing with white worms people have been scared of, right? You got to keep them cooler for them to reproduce faster. Like that could be a thing. Steve said that's sarcasm. I know cruel what it is. Yeah, you're just trying to make me feel better. Come on. Worm to okay. It's just so worm feces, settleability and dewaterability. Like these are dewatering worm feces is not something I ever considered reading about casually. Sometimes there's just these moments where you're like, man, what the hell am I reading? The increased settleability of worm feces will result in a decreased volume of sludge that has to be disposed of. The dewaterability of feces, however, should be investigated further with other methods. I remember a big cost of getting rid of the waste was drying it out so it can be incinerated. Worm feces contains more inorganic material than the waste sludge. We also have indications their protein fraction is smaller. The effect of the sludge consumption on carbohydrates remains unclear. Worm feces still has a relatively high amount of organic matter. Okay. Smart person said, side note, I'm so happy the science knows exist who devote their lives to figure out stuff like this. 100%, bro. Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it. We're just trying to catch up. Appreciate the work a little. Pooja said agreed, smart person, yeah. Okay. Worm biomass harvesting, yep. So the worms can be easily separated from the waste sludge. This could be using 300 sieves. Okay, that leads to complete separation as applied in our experiments, but using bigger mesh sizes may also have a desired effect with less clogging of filter materials. However, harvesting of worms from sponge-like carrier by applying mechanical techniques, low oxygen concentration, light sources, or flushing the carrier with water seems ineffective. Okay, recently a method has been developed for the harvested of pure and live biomass from a carrier. Okay. For industrial scale things, blackworms are more popular. I think it's just by country, because when we're looking at the Tubifex, like Tubifex is super popular in it, like in Indonesia and stuff. Um, so I think it just depends on where you're at. Which again is another reason we probably want to look at the temperature preferences closer in the future, because of something like something cooler. Yeah, but I doubt that's a problem because they're farming them outside in California. So. JP Jeffrey says, "Me too. I have 71. I'm done after 2 days. Do yours take a while to connect?" Oh my God, 71. Oh, just shoot me. Oh, I feel for you. I truly feel for you. I truly feel for you. Man. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm cutting it there for now on the reading the papers. I'm gonna wind down. Let me look at the pictures, Putu Pit and the of the blackworms, the blackworm photos. Oh man, that's a lot of worms. Is this from your pond, Putu? Man, Putu's got all the damn live food cultures. This is crazy. You add blackworms to that with no leeches? Oh man. That's a lot of worms. Oh my God. Okay, this next picture with them by the snails is truly disturbing. I don't like that. Hold up. Hey. Smoke weed every day. Alright. So here we see a bigger, wider out view of the worm mass with the ram's horns. Yeah. And the isopod, shiny isopod in there. Air pump got disconnected, they rushed to the surface. Jeez. Yeah. I mean, it looks like a lot of great fish food. I'm not gonna lie. It looks like a lot of great fish food. Alright, guys. Any less questions, comments, or concerns? I still got a few things work-wise to catch up with tomorrow. Otherwise, I go another 2 hours. I'm trying to keep my sleep schedule reasonable. Looks like a comfy bed. Absolutely not. But this has been another fun one. Let me know what things should we go through, look up, try and figure out more about next time. Let me know your suggestions in the Discord, in the comments, whatnot. I enjoy doing this. I like learning more. I like when people are in the chat helping me learn more. Smart Person, shout out to Smart Person, Putu, JP Jeffries, Mick, the gang, the squad, Steve, everyone helping contribute. Beto, of course, William. We should look up what the Jesse Fish Room tour should drop. Yeah, I have a lot of videos to finish, but I'm a flawed individual. What can I say? Trying my best. Trying my best. Videos should drop this month, though. This has been fun. Definitely, though, comment, get in the Discord. Let's figure out what we should do next on this. I think the group power is good. We got to do these blackworm reactor. This feels applicable. This feels easily applicable to what we're doing in aquariums. At the very least, I will think about throwing some blackworms in whatever canister or whatnot that I have. Like, why not? It couldn't hurt. You know? William said this month, let's go. Yeah. Mosquito larva nutritional video. Oh, Jesse, stop laughing. Stop laughing. I don't like them, but I know some of y'all do. People love mosquito larva. We should do mosquito larva nutritional video. For some reason, though, I feel like I could talk about worms and look up worms a lot longer than mosquito larvae. Like, the idea of reading about mosquito larvae for this long makes me unhappy. Oh, we broke 3 hours. Let's go. We're back. Oh my god, we're back. We're back. Hardest working fish stream. Oh my god. Wasn't even trying. We broke 3 hours. Let's go. Let's go. That makes me happy. That makes me happy. I really don't like doing the 2 hour, 1 hour streams. If we don't break 3 hours, then I feel like I didn't do a good job. Fish room will be completely different by the time your video comes out. No, I'm gonna come and film more, and then film the edition. Like, that's the thing. It's a rolling thing. I'm still figuring it out how I want to do it, you know. But I'm definitely gonna come back and film more. Be a multi-part interview thing. I consider it a long-term project. You can't really culture mosquito larvae like you can worms. The mosquito thing is just too... As a culture, in the summer, sure. It seems like probably next summer I'm going to have to do the mosquito larvae thing because it just seems free. Mosquito larvae should have a lot of scientific literature out there too, but more about reproductive habits, migrating since they're a disease vector. Since they're a disease vector, yeah. Well, that's another thing. We did it was a little less, it was like at 5 a.m. or something, so it was a little less attended, but we did a good one on the natural predators of protozoans. So, and we did one on Daphnia. We haven't done Moina, but maybe we broaden it so we can talk about more than one live culture in a stream and talk and try and figure out disease vectors in the aquarium. So food, and then maybe like, what is the word? Intermediate hosts. So probably snails, copepods, and then that relates to the live food stuff too. That could be something worth doing. Figure out how dangerous is it to just feed this random, you go out, you catch, a bunch of mosquitoes. You go out, you catch a bunch of Daphnia from a pond. Jesse said picked up a 125 for $6 today. Not bad. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. They have microworms at LFS if you want to deep dive them. I do like microworms. I do have some microworm cultures I've been neglecting because I've been focusing on the Daphnia and stuff. But microworms are like one of my favorite live foods. My Moina are my little Malfauna gyms. I'm running on biofilter only, no physical filtration to help keep the population from crashing. So far, so good. That's pretty fun. They have, okay, so Putu. So this is the picture of the worms when there's an air failure in Putu's pond, and then here's the blackworms. And Putu's actually in California, I believe. So this is like real California blackworms, not one of those Australian farmed ones. So yeah, the comparison is stark. No air, air. No air, air. And a much nicer background, quite honestly. Although it's not wormy, which is the purpose of this. Deep dive, Micro Walter and Bananas guest starring Captain, preferably. I do like doing the Discord stuff, getting in the voice chat with people. That could be fun. I was supposed to have some guests last week, but it was me. I had to do some other stuff. But hopefully this week I'll get some people on, and we can get to chopping it up, having a good time. But I like the ideas. I like the microworm idea. I like the Moina. We did Daphnia, so only the right to do Moina. Maybe we'll do Moina next because that's a straightforward one. But maybe I'll put some other things in the title like Moina. Then we can go into like a group chat thing type stuff. It's just doing the group chats. I like doing it like I like doing a stream where it's like first 2-3 hours we're hitting the topics, we're in the chat, you know, and then it's like the end, we get to do the group chat after we've handled business, you know. We've handled the main business. We haven't done a rating tanks thing in a while. Last time there wasn't that many submissions though, but maybe now people have more tanks they've set up and worked on they can send in photos of. Mick said fraud worms. Yeah. I mean, also fairy shrimp. We haven't done fairy shrimp, and I got fairy shrimp up in here. I'm growing out. I'm hoping to try and get a culture of those going. Some of them are just reaching what I think is adulthood, so I'll see if some eggs start developing. My brine shrimp colony is starting to go. My live brine shrimp colony, so. Jesse said placed a barb order today. You know, whoa. I like the sound of that. Captain said I'd be happy to participate for the stream concept. I'll put a list in the Discord. Let's go. Yes, Jesse, please put your fish list in the Discord ASAP. The next time I have money, I'm buying some fish. I'm itching to buy some fish. Maybe when I heard the PVAS checks were sent out, so we might be back in it. But I have to breed some fish before I can get a new species. But I did collect some Danio-Kyathit eggs today. So that's one egg scatterer. So I just need like 2 more egg scatterers that I hatch out and I'm growing fry from, and then I can justify it. Oh, William said I recently watched y'all's decapping BBS video and gave it a go. Look at that. Evergreen content? I didn't even know we did that here. I didn't know we watched replayable, watchable content. How'd the decapping go? I need to decap some more. I lost my bleach. I don't know where the bleach is. Yeah, the bleach definitely. New bleach helps. I didn't realize bleach lost its potency over time. But I do think diluting with some water could be good, just so you have more of a window. Is she eating her eggs right now? Oh, man. Those Epistogramma Agassiz Alicures that I got from the Clash. I've gotten 1 egg lay. Now I have another one. The eggs look more promising. And there were more of them, but you know my luck with the pistos. William said, went well. Shrimps and tetras went wild for it today. Let's go! I'm telling you, man, decapping brine is great. And again, if you just have a couple of Osoma, I don't think it's a big deal to do one of those hobby hatchers for the Artemia and feed them live baby brine that way. But my Elosoma have been eating the decap brine eggs that I've been decapping. So you could always just decap a bunch. And you can store decap brine eggs for a bit. I think in a saline solution in the fridge. So could be something that makes keeping Elosoma easier for some people. If you're trying to hatch them, using ice to keep things cold helps. It's possible to cook them. The decapping reaction is... Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, cold water or ice when you're decapping because it can cook the eggs. Yeah, I can see that. I could definitely see that. All right, guys. That's actually cool that you actually went back, watched that, decapped it, and it worked for you. We'll have to do a decap follow-up. Because I do think that decap brine eggs should get more love. Speaking of getting more love, I appreciate you guys. It's been fun. I feel like we're entering a new era on this channel, this stream. Don't know why I feel that way. I can't really describe what that era is, but it feels like we're entering a new stage. You know, the streams are maturing as far as we're kind of getting to know each other better. We're getting into things, getting into rhythm. So it's a good time. I just got to add into it finishing some videos. Now, part of not finishing videos is I want to actually, I don't need to know what I'm talking about, but like if I'm making a video about a fish, I want to have kept it for a while. Well, I've only been in the hobby for 2 years as of like June or whatever. So, to make a video on a lot of fish I have, it would have been like, yeah, I've had this fish for 6 months. But now there's some fish that I've had for a year or two that I've had 6 spawns from, that I have second generations from. I feel like I can talk and actually provide not just information, but a useful perspective, So that's kind of my thing. It's like when I make videos that are videos on a fish, I want to be able to have had enough experience with them where I can actually say something interesting about them. So, yeah. Hopefully, we'll add videos into the mix more regularly. And the fish room stuff, I've been, filming it, and that's not anything that's ever going to be out of date. So as soon as I finish that, we're working. We're putting in the work. So, William said, problem I have with the hobby hatchers, I keep it in a cold room. It takes 48 hours from the hatch. Yeah, I have that problem too. And Aaron, he has the 40-hour or longer to hatch thing, but he just does 2 at once to keep it going constantly. So you're just gonna have to get more than one. Williams have been pumping out a lot of great info that's entertaining to watch. Appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys for helping me synthesize down stuff for reading, comprehend it, filling in my weak points. Doing this together. I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna get some rest. We'll be back within 2 days. Could be tomorrow, but I'm gonna try. This is what I'm gonna say. I'm never gonna promise a certain streaming schedule or time, but I will say that I'm going to try and at least stream within every 2 days. That's my personal goal. It could be less, it could be more. My personal goal is like every 2 days, within 2 days, I don't go more than 2 days without streaming. Or really, I don't go more than 1 day without streaming would be my goal. Just because it's fun, first of all. And also, it means I have to actually get some stuff done in the fish room. So, people are going to ask, what happened to that fish? I'll be like, oh, I just let it sit in the aquarium, didn't work on anything, didn't collect any eggs, didn't feed any fry, Scotty will be pumped to hear that. Yeah. I've already kept that pace. If you go back, we've kept a pretty consistent pace on the live streams. A pretty insane amount of content time-wise. But, yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep freaking going. Okay. With that being said, any other notes in the Discord? Jesse put the barb list up in the Discord. Definitely check that out. I'll check it out, and we'll probably go over it next time. But until then, this has been my tanks. Yo. Dog. My friend. And if you're watching this at home, just know this stream has been brought to you by the Isopod Agenda. In my tanks. Good day, sir. Good day. Good day. Out.